Live. We are live now.
Great, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Senator Jim Dill. I'm the chair of the IFW committee, and I want to welcome everybody to our committee hearing today, meeting. We have 4 public hearings followed by 2 work sessions, and so we'll move right along, hopefully. Don't forget, as usual, this is an electronic meeting. Unmute yourself when you're ready to speak, and otherwise keep yourself muted so there's very little, if any, background noise. Make sure your name is what you want it to be down in the corner of the screen, so it doesn't say Jim's iPad or something like that, so we know who you are. And the Zoom chat is mainly for technical type stuff or questions directly to somebody, but it's not anything of substance. We'd prefer to have that spoken online. And the public hearing process is such that we'll start with the sponsor of the bill, followed by any co-sponsors and other legislators that would like to speak on that particular bill. And then it will be followed by the department, and then finally by the general public. And we will give 3 minutes per testimony. When called upon, you'll be promoted in or a little before, because I try to give you 3 ahead of so that you're already in here and we're ready to go. Again, make sure you mute, your mic is unmuted. And the only other thing that I would have to say is that Representative Landry, who I don't see here yet, and I are unfortunately the background police, and if there is something in the background that we deem inappropriate, we may ask you to reposition your camera so it is off screen.
Senator?
Yes.
Representative Landry is on his way in. I had to send him a link. I don't know why.
Okay.
Tell him I'm here too.
Yep, I see you, Robert Alley, Representative Alley.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good enough. With that, let's go ahead and get going. So I'll start with Representative Mason for introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Mason, District 56, representing all of Lisbon.
Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Senator Dill. I'm Peter Lyford, represented District 129, which is Clifton, Eddington, Holden, Northborough, and Vesey.
Representative Ordway.
Good morning. I'm Representative Lester Ordway. I represent District 23, which is most of the town of Standish.
Representative Hepler.
Good morning. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which includes the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, Dresden, and a small part of Richmond.
Representative Netto.
Good morning, Senator Dill. I'm Kathy Netto. I represent District 78, which covers all of Winslow and a small portion of Benton. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Terrio.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Dill. I am Tim Terrio. I represent District 79, which is Albion, most of Benton, China, and Unity Plantation.
Senator Black.
Good morning. Senator Black, representing Senate District 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec.
Senator Curry.
Good morning. I'm Chip Curry. I represent Senate District 11, which includes the 26 rural, island, and coastal communities of Waldo County.
Representative Landry.
Good morning, Representative Scott Landry, District 113, Farmington, New Sharon.
Representative Alley.
Yes, sir. Yes, Robert Alley, District 138. Jonesport, Beals, Addison, Harrington, Columbia, Columbia Falls, Centerville, Cherryfield, Millbridge, Jonesboro, Whitneyville, and Marshfield.
Great, thank you, everyone. And again, welcome, anyone just joining us. This is the IFW committee, and we have 4 hearings and 2 work sessions today, and we'll get started. And we'll go right into our first one, which is LD 404, an act to preserve deer habitat. And is Representative Johansson here? Don't see him.
No, Senator, I do not see Representative Johansson here either.
All right, so LD 404. With that, we'll just open it up. It's a concept draft. It's a emergency legislation. I do believe, though, probably that the department is working diligently on deer habitat and that type of thing. I think also didn't we hear a report on Lands for Maine Future? I think that's got something to do this year, possibly with preserving some deer habitat. So with that, I'll move right into Commissioner Camuso. Are you going to speak?
Thank you, Senator Dill. Judy Camuso, Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife. I'm not going to give today's testimony, but I would just like to request after the public time to work with.
Hold on here a second.
Representative.
Representative Alley, would you unmute?
Go ahead, Commissioner, too. Would you? There we go. I just muted everybody. Hopefully that will solve our problem.
Great, thank you. So no, sorry, we were just going to request some time after the public hearing to work on some language for this bill. So I believe Nate Webb is in the waiting room and he will be delivering our testimony, but I think if possible, if we could have a little time to help craft the language for this concept would be appreciated.
That sounds good. Thank you. So Linda, if you'd let Dr. Webb in.
He should be in momentarily.
I see him popping up in the corner. So with that, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. I will forewarn you, my testimony is fairly lengthy on this this bill, so I'll walk through it.
Okay.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I am Nate Webb, Wildlife Division Director at the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, speaking on behalf of the department, neither for nor against LD 404. This bill is a concept draft pursuant to Joint Rule 208 and proposes to direct the department to submit a deer management plan and a map of deer wintering areas to the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and to work with the committee to develop a plan to protect deer wintering areas. In northern Maine, the ability for deer to persist has historically depended upon the quantity and quality of winter shelter. Quality winter shelter consists of closed canopy softwood, which acts to reduce snow depths and the effects of temperature and wind. Functionally, the moderation of these environmental factors helps to reduce energy expenditures of deer through the winter months. Efforts to conserve deer wintering areas, otherwise known as DWAs, began in the 1950s and 1960s through the inventory and survey of known DWAs, particularly in the northern 2/3 of the state. At the same time, the department entered into cooperative agreements with industrial forest land owners to accommodate DWA protection and enhancement. This effort was reinforced in the 1970s and 80s through zoning of DWAs as protection areas under the Land Use Regulatory Commission, now LUPC, in unorganized areas of the state, and these areas are referred to as PFWs. In organized towns, DWAs have been identified but are only regulated through site law development under the Natural Resources Protection Act, NERPA. The department provides input as a non-regulatory agency through its environmental review program related to development projects. The current status of mapped DWA habitat is comprised of 172,509 acres of mapped DWA in LUPC jurisdiction, those are the zone PFWs, and 645,146 acres of mapped DWAs in organized towns. The department has also signed cooperative agreements with landowners covering 194,403 acres, which does overlap with those previous figures, in addition to several landowners that informally manage DWA habitat in collaboration with IFW. It's important to note that cooperative agreements are not binding to the landowner and can be nullified at any time. The department, through its updated big game management plan, has identified the following management strategies related to DWAs, and I'll walk through these briefly. Continue to use Loop C zoning to protect DWAs, establish or reestablish cooperative agreements with Maine's large landowners to help manage and conserve the state's DWAs. Continue to use the Land for Maine's Future program and other funding sources to acquire or establish conservation easements or provide other incentives to conserve historically important DWA habitat and prioritize them for management. Increase dialogue with landowners, land managers, land trusts, and wildlife consultants to facilitate conservation of VWAs. Standardize methodology and messaging for IFW staff communication with landowners on managing deer wintering areas. Explore opportunities to use existing natural resource conservation service programs to encourage DWA management. And finally, in the event of a spruce budworm outbreak, collaborate with landowners to identify alternate DWA management strategies in heavily impacted areas. IFW's management of DWAs falls into three categories: habitat management, survey and assessment, and predation management. And I'll describe our work in each of these categories briefly. Under habitat management, the department engages with landowners in management of DWA habitat through several avenues. In Loop C jurisdiction for PFW zone DWAs, landowners are required either to reach agreement with IFW via a Section 5 plan agreement or file for a forest operations permit through the Maine Forest Service. An area zoned as PFW does not require landowners to actively manage deer habitat within PFWs, but rather, if timber harvesting is to occur, it either needs to be done in agreement with IFW, or if agreement can't be reached, the landowner can apply for a forest operations permit. As a result, timber harvests are often deferred by the landowner due to increased operational costs to alter silvicultural prescriptions. Where the department has established cooperative agreements, management of DWAs is coordinated between the landowner and the department collaboratively and typically at a larger scale than operations within PFW zone DWAs. A third component of DWA habitat management is public outreach to interested landowners, with technical assistance provided to the landowner regarding habitat requirements and management objectives. These management recommendations were developed as part of the 2011 Game Plan for Deer and are a publicly available resource for landowners. Under survey and assessment, the department surveys DWA habitat for use when winter yarding conditions exist to understand distribution of wintering deer and confirm presence within DWAs. Over the course of the last decade or so, it has become apparent that deer use of winter habitat has changed. Many historic DWAs are noted for lacking wintering populations of deer, and it appears an increase of deer in and around human populations is commonplace. In 2015, IFW began a research project to GPS collar deer and investigate factors influencing winter mortality rates, which include studying deer in quality winter shelter in traditional DWAs, as well as deer in and around towns where they are artificially fed and provided refuge from predation. And finally, under predation management, the final component of DWA management is management of predation by coyotes. In northern, eastern, and western Maine, we direct contractual effort to remove coyotes within and adjacent to DWAs with a goal of reducing predation on wintering deer. Despite all these efforts, conservation and effective management of DWAs remains a significant challenge for the department. There have been several attempts by the legislature and the department to address DWA management over the past few years, including the Northern and Eastern Maine Deer Task Force in 2007, the Deer Predation Working Group in 2008, the Game Plan for Deer in 2011, and the 2017 Big Game Management Plan. Because deer are at the northern edge of their range in Maine, we believe several related strategies would be required to increase populations, including management of predation, addressing feeding in and around communities, and management of significant acreages of forest land with DWA habitat as the primary management objective. I would be glad to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none. Next up, I have David Trahan.
Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. My name is David Trahan. I'm Executive Director of the Sportsmen's Alliance and Maine Institute for Legislative Action, testifying in favor of LD 404, an act to preserve deer habitat. Last year, Representative Johansson approached the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine and asked if we would help him submit legislation to improve basically what he felt was a loss of deer wintering habitat, particularly in Aroostook County and rural regions of the state. We legislation is a concept. After that, I went to the department. I asked Jerry Bean, one of the most experienced deer habitat individuals in our state. He has over 35 years of experience managing deer and acting as a consultant for our organization. Had two very good meetings with the department, with Nate and with Judy, the commissioner, and felt we had a very productive discussion around some of the things that we could do to, I believe, strengthen the department's ability to manage wintering areas. I feel that those meetings are worthy of a few weeks. If the committee would consider allowing us a little time to work on some concepts and move forward a proposal. The one thing that we would like to do is, if we do come up with a proposal of significance, that we hold a public hearing on that bill so that the general public can have an opportunity to weigh in on the policies within it. I think the public deserves that opportunity. Some things may be controversial. We aren't sure yet, but I feel the meetings we've had so far have really produced some good ideas and some support from all kinds of folks. I would like to give a little history on the 2011 deer management plan. I as a senator at the time under the new LePage administration, led an effort to do deer wintering areas. I feel the most productive component of those discussions came in on, in which was help folks IFW and Jerry Living draft to prioritize the purchase of deer wintering habitat in certain regions of the state. Since that 10-year period and since that last bond, there have been problems found that I think need to be addressed to strengthen that language and to also give the department the tools that they need to I think, achieve better management, more management. Not to say that the work that they're doing isn't good, because I think it is. I just don't think they have the resources needed to do it. And I'd like to participate in giving them those resources. So with that, if the committee would entertain letting us have a little time, I think we can bring you back an exciting product that many people across this state have been asking for a long time, and we may finally have an opportunity to deliver it. I'd also like to thank this administration, the Mills administration, for being so open and helpful with this type of legislation, and Judy and her staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Trahan? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. I don't have anyone else on my list for LD 404.
Done here.
Okay, so then I will close the hearing on LD 404. Thank you. As I mentioned, we do have 3 today, and I'm not sure why they were listed out of numerical sequence on our worksheet, but we don't always go by the way they're listed. I am going to go over to 394 next, and we will open up the hearing on LD 394. Because I was asked, a lot of people thought it was going to be first anyway, because normally we do list them numerically. So this is an act to protect Maine's loons, and other wildlife, and the issuance of a permit to hold a regatta, race, a boat, or water ski exhibition. And with that, it's Representative Ordway.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Dill, and Representative Landry, and my esteemed colleagues on the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Representative Lester Ordway, here to present this bill, really a wildlife protection bill. And this bill, what it does, and I'll speak briefly to it, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a lot of testimony after me with some very passionate people and some experts in the area. But it requires the commissioner to have some control over these races so that she can, or future commissioners can, will have the ability to make sure that wildlife are not being harmed when these boat races or water ski exhibitions happen. I will say, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of testimony on this. The folks that I met with when we came up with this bill, pretty passionate. They said, "What can I do? What can we do?" I said, "Get your folks to send some emails." And yeah, they listened. You all noticed they listened. So for that, I will open it up to any questions, but I think the department has some words on it, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Representative Ordway? All right, seeing none, I will move on to Representative Hassenfuss. Are you here to testify on this bill, I believe?
I am, Senator Dill. Thank you very much. Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, I'm here to testify in support of LD 394. It is the telltale sign of spring.
Would you introduce yourself, though, please, first?
Yep. Sorry. Yes, my name is Tavis Hassenfuss. I am the representative for House District 81, which is Winthrop Reedfield in North Monmouth. And it is the telltale sign of spring when hidden behind the misty morning fog emanates the call of a loon that us Mainers recognize in an instant. This sure sign of spring has special significance to me as sitting here today. This is a picture of my daughter Gavia, who's playing in the other room right now. Very good. And her name is the scientific name for loon, Gavia immer. So loons certainly have a significance to me. And I don't think I'm alone when I say that. Everyone, even though the chickadee is a much admired bird in Maine, I think loons are definitely one of Maine's favorite birds. Fortunately, these water birds have had a strong reemergence in recent years, but their population is still fragile for a number of reasons that will most likely be expressed in the upcoming testimony. They can explain the fragility of this species. And as a state, we must do everything we can to protect them and make sure their song rings out every spring in lakes all across Maine. However, this legislation is about much more than just protecting these beloved birds. This legislation will protect all of our lakes, the wildlife contained in our lakes, the plant life, and the water quality. This bill simply asks, as part of the permit application for a boating event, take into consideration the environmental impact that it will have on the hosting lake, in addition to protecting the property and safety of the public, as is now in statute. It also seems intuitive that we make sure a lake's wildlife and water quality remain the same after an event as it was before. And I can honestly say that I love boating, I love water skiing, I love all the water sports, and I love them just as much as I like hearing the loons every morning. But these two main staples are not mutually exclusive. There's places in Maine that are exceptionally well suited for boating, boat races, regattas, water skiing, and the like. There's also places in Maine that it has much more of an impact on the ecosystems. And there are certain times of year when the impacts of boating events would have more impact on the wildlife than other times of the year. This legislation merely asks that the environmental factors be considered as part of the permitting process, in addition to the already required protection of safety and property. So I think this is a very common sense solution to make sure that all interests are balanced. And, you know, I would be the first to say that if this is going to hold up boating, then it's not a great law, but it's not. It's not favoring one over the other. It's just finding a very common sense balance between the two so that people like myself can enjoy boating and water skiing and all of those great activities. And also, you know, hear the loons every morning for generations to come so that my daughter Gavia can, you know, 40 years from now, enjoy the very same outdoor recreational activities and calls that I have. So with that, I will open it up for questions if you have any, but thank you very much for taking the time to hear what I have to say. And I look forward to answering any questions you might have, although I'm certainly not an expert in this field.
I assume that was a loon call I just heard in the background then.
That was a loon call over there. She's on the piano right now. So
thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Let's see. I don't see any, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Senator Diamond.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. Thank you for allowing me to say some very brief comments about my support for LD 394. And I'm pleased to follow Representative Ordway on his lead here. I think it's, as has been spoken, this certainly is a bill that can go and satisfy both factions, I think, water safety, water enjoyment, and protecting our wildlife. I think what struck me most about the bill is that it uses the word reasonable approach. And I think that really sends a signal that everybody can and should work together on this. There can be winners on both sides. And I think that's what I think stands out most with this. And I look forward to see the commissioner's involvement if this bill should pass. I think that in itself reassures or can reassure a lot of people, certainly does me. I'm also told there's a friendly amendment that will be coming along. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what that all is about. But in any event, thank you for the time. I think this is a very a good approach that seeks out to protect loons, but also to protect water recreation, water enjoyment, which both are very important to this state and to the tourism and all the efforts we do to bring people to Maine to enjoy our wonderful state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Senator Diamond? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony, Senator.
Thank you.
Next is he still here? Representative Corey, there you are. Representative Corey.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I'm Representative Patrick Corey of Wyndham, here to testify in support of LD 394, an act to protect Maine's loons and other wildlife and the issuance of a permit to hold a regatta, boat, a race, or I get this all messed up, boat or water ski exhibition. As a hunter, birder, and former member of this committee, sorry I forgot the candy, guys, but I'd have to drive to all of your houses to do that, which is near impossible. I know that we must find balance between our recreational outdoor activities and the necessity of our treasured wildlife to flourish. This committee and the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife are well positioned to do just this. The bill in front of you reminds me a lot of Maine's incidental take law, MRS Title 12, subsection 12808-A. Incidental take is an unfortunate impact on wildlife that is a result of an otherwise lawful activity. That law seeks to prevent, minimize, and mitigate the take through the authorization of an activity by MDIFW commissioner. I would take a look at that law when thinking about this law. Given Maine's incidental take law, I believe Maine currently engages in activities similar to those suggested in this bill. Senator Diamond mentioned the words reasonable precautions in the language. For this reason, I would encourage the committee and bill's sponsor to work this bill and report something out that strikes a balance between the activities listed in LD 394 and the wildlife habitat and water quality it seeks to protect. This language, the languages of this bill appears to do that. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Representative Corey? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thanks.
Representative Danny Martin, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, folks. Danny Martin, House 150, located in northern Worcester County. I apologize. I had to sponsor a bill before ENR this morning. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Next up will be Tim Peabody from Department of IFW, followed by Charmaine Sperling, Heinrich Worm, and Monica Mahoney. So with that, Tim Peabody. I think I saw you're out there in the attendee list, so we'll let you in here.
He is on screen, I believe.
All right, I don't see him on my screen unless he's got a...
I'll find him.
There he is. You there, Tim?
Yeah, I just got kicked off briefly, but I'm back.
All right.
My video's on. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Tim Peabody, Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Just so you know, we can hear you, but we cannot see you, which is okay if that's the way you want to testify.
If I can. Yeah, I don't see the camera. The camera was up there, but it's gone now.
Okay.
If you can.
Go ahead. Now you can make all the faces you want at us while you testify.
I guess so. I had the camera on. I was on earlier and I got kicked off and then it came back on again. So must have lost the video then, whatever it is. I'm not trying to hide anything. I have a good background here. So anyway, speaking on behalf of the department in support of LD 394, the bill requires a person obtaining a permit to hold a regatta, race, boat exhibition, or water ski exhibition to provide protection as prescribed by the Commissioner of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife for wildlife habitat, and water quality. Current law requires persons who wish to hold regatta, a race, boat exhibition, or water ski exhibition to apply for a permit from the department. To summarize the application process, you must apply in writing 15 days in advance with a date, time, and location of the event. For a proposed race, the applicant must send a letter of intent 60 days prior to the race to the municipal officers in the area where the race will occur. A copy of such letter must accompany the application to the department. Upon receipt of the completed applications, the permits are granted by the department have the following requirements in statute. The permit holder shall provide reasonable protection as prescribed by the Commissioner from water traffic interference and hazards, and shall take reasonable precautions to safeguard persons and property. Officials conducting the event shall display one or more 4x4 orange warning flags while the event is in progress. The department supports the language proposed in LD 394 as it provides additional statutory requirements directly related to the protection of wildlife, wildlife habitats, and water quality for persons who choose to have permitted events described above. If passed, it would provide clarity around the commissioner's authority to place specific permit conditions for boat race events. We thank Representative Ordway for bringing this bill on behalf of his constituents in his district. They're primarily residents around Watchuk Lake in York County, where they've had concerns for resident loon population and racing events on the lake. There's currently statute against harassing wildlife with a watercraft, but the department feels having the proposed language in this bill would be a proactive approach to the concern rather than a direct enforcement action against an event coordinator or boat operator for harassing wildlife. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Are there any questions? Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Senator. And I appreciate the bill. I really do. I think it's more of a answer looking for a question a little bit, because we have current laws that you're not allowed to harass loons. But do we have any instances of this actually happening? I mean, is that, I understand I got an email from one of the people that said that they were positive that this is happening, and I'm just not aware of that. Could you give me any information on that?
In 2018, there was a incident on Watchuk Lake where a loon was washed up on shore, and it appeared to have prop strikes on it. And the investigation that was done, this was several days after a boat race event down there. There was no evidence to show that it was struck by one of the boats involved in the boat race. And that would be quite a challenge if they've got a prop strike on a loon to tie it to an actual particular watercraft to actually charge someone with it. You'd have to see it as an intentional action in order to prosecute it.
Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Peabody, when you talk about these specific permit conditions to protect wildlife, do you have anything specific in mind?
Primarily just, it's really just a notification to people having these events that they need to be aware. They have spotters right now involved in these races. The current permits require spotters and spotters for other boats, but they're also looking for wildlife. And this language would allow the department to specifically tell, well, we may already have the authority, but this would specifically tell us that in our permits, we would require them to have spotters for wildlife that might be in the area.
Representative Ordway.
Yeah, just a note on Mr. Peabody's testimony. Watchuk Lake is in beautiful Cumberland County, not York. Thank you.
Isn't that so?
Sorry about that, Representative Ordway.
Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Senator. So if we already have the authority to do this, why do we need to make a law? I guess that's another big question I have.
That question is for me, Representative Terrio. We have a number of places in Title 12 where the committee has provided us additional direction on whether it's managing bear, moose, deer, where we probably already have the authority to go to rulemaking on a particular issue inside of Title 12, but we currently have numbers of places where the committee has heard concerns from the public and acted in that manner by asking us to focus on this one particular issue or to put a particular restriction on a permit. And like I say, it's not out of the ordinary to have this type of language in Title 12.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And I just thought I saw Representative John Martin. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir? Representative John Martin, can you hear me? Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, John Martin, House District 151, and I represent everything in western Aroostook County.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my next three, as I said, is Shamian, I hope I pronounced that right, Sperling, Heinrich Worm, and Monica Mahoney. So with that, Ms. Sperling.
Good morning to the senator, to the commissioners, and to all of you who are assembled to consider this important legislation. I have no official role. I am a property.
Could you introduce yourself, though, and tell us where you're from, please?
Yes, Charmian Sperling. I'm a property owner and a boat owner in Greenville Junction, Maine, on Moosehead Lake. Do you need any other information?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm very concerned about the current situation, and I think the lapses in the legislation. And I think that this proposed Bill 394 is a wonderful way to strengthen the permitting process. I think that the requirements now for permitting are very specific about their protection of people and property, but not very specific about wildlife protection. And I see the proposed legislation as nothing but an improvement on that. The loons are dear to us, certainly on Moosehead Lake. They're our neighbors and friends, and we rely upon them for company. And while we're avid boaters, I wasn't aware that the wildlife was not particularly protected in the permitting process. So while I know that there is other legislation that protects wildlife, I think tying together the wildlife protection and the permitting, the event permitting process will really do what's needed to protect the nesting areas of loons, particularly on small lakes. I'm aware of the friendly amendment that Richard Wiggins will offer, and am certainly a proponent of that because I think that it will strengthen the commissioner's ability to deny a permit to petitioners who will not ensure reasonable protection to wildlife. And after all, from my point of view, that's what we're about here. We want our recreation. We want free use of our lakes and waterways, but we also want to ensure that the loon population is not diminished or injured through our recreation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none. Next on my list, and sorry if I mispronounced the name, is Heinrich Worm. With that, Heinrich.
Thank you, Senator, for listening to me. I'm a retired physician living in Lovell, Maine on Keezer Lake. And I've spent the last 5 years with a project trying to keep a track of our loons, seeing how they're doing, enhancing their breeding habitat, and monitoring their progress. We are lucky in Maine to have so many loons. Many others.
Just introduce yourself though, please, just so we have your name on record.
Okay, my name is Heinrich Worm, and I live in Lovell, Maine.
Thank you.
I thank you for listening to me. I'm in favor of LD 394, allowing inland fisheries and wildlife to expand their resource capability and include wildlife considerations when deciding to grant permission to allow speedboat racing on great ponds. Loons are iconic to Maine in the northeastern United States and are a valuable resource. Citizens and the state of Maine have an obligation to preserve this resource. Specifically, loons deserve protection from man-made threats, and Inland Fisheries and Wildlife is the agency to take care of this matter. Loons have a number of threats from their environment. They're not only threatened in inland waters, they're spent the whole winter in the ocean where they have new threats. And it makes sense for us to do whatever we can to keep human threats away from them. And this legislature, I think, is made to do that. And I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone? All right. Again, thank you for your testimony. Next up will be Monica Mahoney, followed by Richard Wiggin, Sean Kavanaugh, and Agnes Connors. So Monica Mahoney.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to testify, Senator Dill and other members of the commission. I live in Standish, Maine. I am a property owner and a boat owner, and I live on Watchick Pond, sometimes called Watchick Lake. I submitted, actually, I emailed every member of this committee my concerns and asking you to support this legislation. I heard back from Representative Allison Hepler, so thank you for responding, Representative Hepler. Again, all of you received my email, my reasons for urging you to support this. I wanted to respond to some questions that Representative Terrio raised. He stated that this is a solution in search of a problem and asked if this has ever happened before. As the representative from the Department of Wildlife, Mr. Peabody, stated, in 2018, there was a high-speed boat race on Watchick Pond in which boats were racing in excess of 70 miles an hour, 4 boats abreast, and extremely dangerous on a body of water the size of Watchick Pond. We have been fortunate to have 2 active loon populations nesting on this small body of water. And during that race, well, again, it was 3 days later that the body washed up, but it is more likely than not that one of the loons was killed, struck by a prop from one of these boats racing at 70 miles an hour. Again, I'm a boat owner. I don't oppose the use of boats. That's one of the pleasures of living on a lake, but it needs to be reasonable. And it needs to be take into consideration all of the factors, including protecting wildlife. Maine's loon population has shown a decline for a 2nd year in a row in Maine, according to the Maine Audubon Loon Census from 2020. The loon population is very slow to rebound. Loons don't start breeding until they're 6 years old, and they produce just 1 or 2 chicks a year. This past year, we had 2 nesting loon populations, only 2 babies were born on our pond. Loons are very heavy birds. They can't simply fly away when they see danger. They need distance, they need time to do that. When there is a boat racing towards them at 70 miles an hour, 4 boats abreast, can you imagine this, through an active loon nesting area. The loon dives, but the only way it can survive is to come up and get air. And the existing statute that this legislation is seeking to amend only protects persons and property. It does not mention wildlife at all. Representative Terrio said, we don't need to make a new law. This is not making a new law. This is amending a current law to make it more effective, to consider all of the factors involved. Again, the language is minimal and it's restrictive. Reasonable considerations. One of the reasonable considerations I suggest you be considered is that boat racing not be permitted in a known active loon nesting area. Again, this is a very small body of water. I'm only speaking about Watchet Pond because that's what I know. And the boat race that occurs is directly through the known nesting area. They could have it at Sebago Lake, which is 5 minutes from here, much larger, much more space for boats to operate at that speed. Recreational boats typically go 10 to 25 miles per hour compared to 70 miles per hour plus when you're racing.
Can you summarize quickly, please?
This is a reasonable accommodation. It's in line with the mission of the Department of Wildlife. Their mission is to protect wildlife. Requiring that we look at separate laws about harassing wildlife when issuing permits is not reasonable. Adding this small restrictive language is, and I hope that the committee will consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next up, thank you for your testimony. Next up is Richard Wiggin. You need to unmute yourself, sir. Mr. Wiggin, you need to unmute yourself. There we go.
There we go. Okay, thank you. And good morning, Senator Dill and Representative Landry and esteemed members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Rick Wiggin from Standish, and I'd like to thank Representative Ordway for sponsoring and supporting this bill, and I urge you to support it. LD 394 is a simple, rational measure to protect loons and other wildlife from boat racing in environmentally sensitive venues. The permitting statute for boat racing, which is Title 12, Section 13061, contains an unintentional flaw that needs to be addressed, and LD 394 is the means to correct that flaw. The flaw is that the statute makes no reference to wildlife. Accordingly, the IFW has told us and determined that this precludes them from considering wildlife impacts in the issuance of a permit. Wildlife simply has no seat at the table. Moreover, the commissioner has ruled that it cannot deny a permit request. That means that race organizers get their permit regardless of the environmental sensitivity of the race venue, and regardless of any potentially devastating impact the race may have on resident wildlife. This is clearly not the intent of the statute. If IFW's job is, and I quote, protecting Maine's fish and wildlife and their habitats by safely connecting people with nature through responsible recreation, sport, and science, it is ludicrous to think that they would be given permitting authority over an activity, but denied the authority to exercise oversight of the wildlife impacts of that activity. That is the basic flaw that leaves every lake and river in Maine exposed, and that this bill seeks to correct. LD 394 simply provides IFW with the statutory authority to do its job. Unfortunately, as printed, LD 394 is also flawed in that it doesn't give IFW any more authority to deny a permit than it has now. And this would be important if wildlife impacts cannot be mitigated. So I have a friendly amendment to propose, which I believe all of you have in front of you in my written testimony. I'll read it if you'd like, but in effect, the amendment adds to subsection 2 of the statute the words, if the commissioner determines that the regatta, race, or exhibition will not unreasonably endanger public safety, wildlife habitat, or water quality. In summary, this will empower the commissioner not to issue a permit for a regatta, race, boat, or water ski exhibition if he or she determines that the event would unreasonably endanger public safety, wildlife habitat, or water quality. It's a pretty straightforward need. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wiggin? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next is Sean Kavanaugh.
Good afternoon, good morning. This is Sean Kavanaugh, Maine resident. Brief history, I am the past president of the Kiwanis Club where these boat races are held. The boat races on Watchik Lake are a fundraiser for the Kiwanis Club, and by Kiwanis' own records indicate that we have brought in over $100,000 to benefit Kiwanis activities in the Standish area. The races have actually taken place since 1959, and we have one competitor that travels from Texas every year that was at that inaugural race in 1959, and he comes to enjoy the events that we have. Under Title 29, for the past 20 plus years, I've been applying for and been privileged to receive permits to hold events around the state. Watchik Lake is not the only place we have permitted events. We've been on Number One Pond in Sanford, Lake Peninsula in Norway, North Pond in Warren, Little Sebago, and we have 2 other scheduled events this year that we will be applying for permits within the state. We go to great efforts to ensure the safety of not only our competitors, but of the viewing public and the environment and the wildlife. We have 2 patrol boats on the racing course at all times during the event, and these are manned by 2-man crews that are in constant contact via radio with our racing commission. Should there be any debris, any stray boating activities, or anyone entering the race course that might be endangered. We also, of course, check for wildlife, and we go to great lengths to ensure the safety of the wildlife. Our patrol boats are outfitted with current modern 4-cycle engines that minimize any pollution to the area, as they are out there for about 4 hours a day during the actual racing activities. We inspect our boats prior to the race, and these boats are pretty small. They're about 10 feet long, made out of plywood, very much like a top-end kayak would be a 3 to 4 millimeter plywood. And if we were to strike a piece of 2x4, a log, or God forbid, a loon, the impact and the damage to the boat and the driver could be considerable. So our safety workers on the course are always checking for debris, and wildlife are included in that. I am for protecting the environment and the wildlife, but I feel that this additional legislation would just be a burden on the permit process and basically redundant, as we have heard. I've also heard today the word racing used almost exclusively. No one is upset about water ski shows, regattas, or other permitted types of events, and I feel this is almost a vendetta against the Kiwanis Club to eliminate racing on Watchik Lake. As I've mentioned, we get a permit every year. We have a very good relationship with IFW. I am previously a certified boater safety instructor with IFW, and as I said, I've been obtaining permits for over 20 years. I think the legislation is very good. I do feel that there is a bit of redundancy there, and I appreciate your time. If there's any other questions you'd like answered about the boat racing and specifically about the Kiwanis Club's activities, I'd be happy to take those questions now.
Thank you. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if who could answer this question, but I'm curious how many boats make up a regatta? And is this permit applied for very much? I don't know if that'd be for the department.
I could answer those questions if you like.
Sure. Go ahead.
During an actual racing event, our maximum number of boats on the closed course is 12. This is by our own safety regulations. Our race course is about 1,500 feet long, which is the same amount of frontage that the Kiwanis Club has on the lake, and about 900 feet into the lake. The course is surrounded by buoys, and red flags, the 4x4 red flags, are displayed during the racing time. The races typically would be about 4 hours on Saturday, and 4 hours on Sunday, starting after noon time. Races are held the weekend before Memorial Day and the weekend after Labor Day, when the recreational boat traffic has really subsided. I've applied for these permits. I think this is our 19th or 20th year at Watchet Pond this spring.
Thank you. I think what I'm looking for information is on a regatta. How big is a boat regatta?
Yeah, I think that's something that we can have at the work session, representative, perhaps.
Right. And how many permits filed for these each year? I mean, the number is what I'm really looking for.
Yep. That'll
Thank
be
you.
good. We'll ask the department to have that at the work session.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kavanaugh, when you say that, so I'm curious, when you have these boats out and are checking for safety, debris, and that sort of thing, when one of your these patrol boats comes across wildlife, what sorts of things would you do, or would they do?
Well, the patrol boats are in constant radio contact with the race director, who starts and ends the races, does the flagging, things of this nature. The race would not start until we have a all clear on the course. We are going to amend our pre-inspection for the race to include a specific wildlife check. We're purchasing binoculars to have on the boats and on the starter stand, which is basically a dock on the side of the lake. So we will have 3 people actively scanning the course prior to any event. Now, each of these races lasts about 3 minutes. They're not a long, drawn-out event. And typically, we've seen that any wildlife in the area tends to leave at the start of our events. There's a lot of ducks that come to Watchet Pond because people tend to feed them. So even the ducks migrate off the course area, and loons, being birds of prey, are pretty smart. They seem to vacate the area and then return a short time after the end of our event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Lightfoot.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Sean, just 2 quick questions for you. Now that this bill has been raised in this amendment, would your organization do anything different this coming year? And the other question would be, is there a warden present when this is going on?
I'll answer the second part first, because that's much quicker. We have head wardens in attendance, particularly Warden Mike Joy, when he was working in the York and Cumberland County area, by invitation to attend our events to see what was happening. Typically, a warden does not show up unless there is a complaint, and we've never had a complaint that has required a warden to show up that I'm aware of in all these years. I think what we're going to do a little bit differently is, rather than just call it a course safety check, we're going to call it a wildlife safety check, and be specifically using the binoculars to scan the entire course, which is relatively small and protected by buoys, to make sure that there are no signs of loon activity, ducks, whatever the case may be. We do a lot to protect the environment, and I feel that we do protect the wildlife pretty well at this point already. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dill?
Yes.
Would it be possible to ask the commissioner a question?
Is it a question that you'd prefer to have at the work session? Because we try not to.
Okay, yeah, no, I guess we could ask her at the work session.
If you want, well, you can ask her now so she can bring the answer to the work session. Also, she's prepared if you'd like.
Okay, my question was, in issuing these permits, has the department ever disregarded their mission for protecting wildlife? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leifer, could I add a bit to my response?
Love to have you.
Yes, we also have within our racing organization, which is South Shore Outboard, this is our 70th year of continuing boat racing. We have a position now known as the risk manager. And this official's position is to observe the entire event to make sure we've taken all safety concerns into consideration. This could be anything from a tree root blocking a path to locations of vehicles, to debris on the course, to what's on the shoreline. So to revert back to your original question, this will be a new step that we are taking, a person basically in charge of safety, not only on the shore, but on the water, to provide additional protection for the environment and the animals about the area.
Thank you.
Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, Mr. Kavanaugh. I have one more question, and I think I missed what you said at the beginning about the revenue raised in these races. So is it, when you, I wrote down over $100,000, is that over 20 years in all of those lakes, or is that just in Watchet Pond?
That is in Watchet Pond, and those figures were given to me by Sarah Gregg, the president of the Kiwanis Club, in a telephone conversation last week.
Okay, so that was Watchet, okay.
In addition to supporting the Kiwanis Club on Watchet Pond, we also have the fire rescue standing by during our events with an ambulance and 2 attendees. By my own figuring, we have donated over $12,000 in the past 20 years to the Standish Fire Rescue for their standby ambulance. And another benefit to the community is 2 years ago, during another event on the Kiwanis property, a Memorial Day event for the heroes from the wars that this country's been involved with, a gentleman had a heart attack, and the ambulance that we had standing by was able to respond in less than a minute's time and rescue this gentleman. So I feel that we did a little bit of good for the community on that weekend also.
Thank you.
Thanks for your questions.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony.
Mr. Dill, thank you very much.
Next up is Agnes Connors, followed by Gary Bennett, Kim LaJoy, and Stephen LaJoy. So go ahead, Mrs. Connors. Unmute yourself, please, and introduce yourself. Ms. Connors, go ahead and unmute yourself. Yep, there you go.
Okay. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished IFW committee members. I am Agnes Connors of Standish, and I am testifying today in support of both LD 394 and the friendly amendment as submitted by Richard Wiggin. I am a boat owner and love cruising and water skiing on my lake. This legislation in no way impacts those activities. My family and I are outdoor adventurers who do a lot of hiking, boating, and enjoying of the beautiful nature in Maine. We support fishing and gaming. I would like to make the distinction between recreational boating and boat racing. Recreational boating, including most water skiing, is typically done at speeds from 10 to 30 miles per hour. Recreational boaters are usually on the lookout for wildlife and are aware of other boaters and are likely to take evasive action to avoid coming close. By contrast, boat racing reaches speeds of 70 plus miles per hour, with boats typically 4 abreast. With a laser focus on gaining an edge on the boats next to them, boat racers are largely oblivious to wildlife hazards around them. And at the speeds they travel, there is not a chance of swerving to avoid wildlife. This amended bill will allow the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife to fulfill its mission to, quote, protect Maine's fish and wildlife and their habitats by safely connecting people with nature through responsible recreation, sport, and science. Today, the MD IFW Commissioner does not have the authority to consider wildlife impacts in issuing a boat race permit. This bill will provide MD IFW with needed authority to ensure that boat races are held in a manner not to endanger wildlife. Before closing, I would like to thank Representative Ordway for submitting this bill and for his help and support. I urge you to support LD 394 and the friendly amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? All right, again, thank you. Seeing none, moving on to Gary Bennett. If you want to unmute yourself, Mr. Bennett. There you go, Mr. Bennett. Looks like you're unmuted now. But you're not. Still can't hear you. Mr. Bennett? Can't hear you. Mr. Bennett, while you're trying to figure out, we'll move on to Kim LaJoy. Whoops, he's back. Hold it a second. All right, now he does appear to be gone. So with that, I'll move on to Kim LaJoy. Ms. LaJoy?
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished IFW committee members. My name is Kim LaJoy and I live in Standish. I'm speaking in support of LD 394. I have had the good fortune to observe loons for over 20 years, and while I'm not a biologist, I can testify about loon behavior, their family values, their habits, and how evolution has participated in a perfectly evolved bird who is intelligent and a valued addition to our lives and the lives of the residents and visitors in the state of Maine. Loons are not like other waterfowl. Most waterfowl have hollow bones which allow them to take off from land or water at a moment's notice. Loons have solid bones which allow them to dive deep and stay down for as long as 5 minutes in search of food. Their legs have evolved towards the back of their body, which helps them with diving, but makes them clumsy on land and contributes to their inability to take off directly from water. Instead, they must run over the surface of the lake, flapping their wings. It takes them 100 feet to a quarter of a mile in order for them to gain liftoff. This puts them at great disadvantage for avoiding boats, especially boats moving at 50 to 90 miles per hour and running 4 to 5 abreast, as is the case with these high-speed boat races. Their only option is to dive, which is when they are hit or when they resurface. Parents carrying babies on their backs will not dive at all. Young loons are most vulnerable to boat strikes as their ability to dive deep is not developed until the fall of their first year. Boat strikes are becoming the leading cause of reported loon deaths in the state of Maine. Loons are 6 or 7 years old before they establish a breeding territory with their first mate. They can live 20 to 30 years and return annually to the same lake to breed. Loon parents share in the incubation and raising of their young. They are devoted parents. The 2018 loss of the male loon on Washoe Lake during nesting season upset the rhythm of the wildlife for the next 2 years. There were no chicks born or fledged on the lake during the 2018 and 2019 season. This tragedy could have been avoided if IFW had had the power to deny a race permit in a known nesting territory. Washoe Lake participates in the annual Audubon Maine loon count, so it is a well-established and documented loon nesting area. Loons are particularly vulnerable to changes in their environment. Warming waters mean that their prey is found further and further out into deeper, colder water, which puts the loons more often in harm's way for boats. We've seen this phenomenon at our own house. 10 years ago, we had loons closer to shore, stashing their young against invasion of loon teenagers or sleeping. I support the friendly amendment brought forth by Rick Wiggin. Thank you, committee, for the opportunity to address you, and please support this important bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Bennett, I'll come back to you to see if you've got your audio fixed. You're still muted there, sir. Nah, it appears your screen says you're unmuted, but I still can't hear you.
May I suggest checking the volume? If it's all the way turned down, we wouldn't hear him.
Mr. Bennett, can you check your volume? All right, we'll let you work on that a little bit more, Mr. Bennett. I'll move on to Mr. LaJoy, and we'll come back to you again and give it a try again after him. So, Mr. LaJoy.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished IFW members. My name is Steve LaJoy. I'm from Standish, and I'm testifying in favor of LD 394, excuse me, and the friendly amendment that has been proposed this morning. The bill before you and the proposed amendment seek to rectify an inadvertent omission in the existing permit regulations, which include no provision for the consideration of the dangers to or negative impact upon wildlife or the environment when issuing permits for certain types of boating races or events, excuse me. The purpose of this bill is not to ban anything. It is to give IFW the tools it needs to follow their charter when reviewing applications for these permits. I want to address a couple of things that have been said earlier in the testimony. First of all, the loon that was found in 2018, the still bleeding carcass of that loon was found in close proximity to the race on Sunday during the race weekend, not days later. When we contacted IFW at that time, we were told that the current regulations allow them to consider only people and property, not wildlife. The modern version of these races started in 2002. Mr. Kavanaugh mentioned that they're applying for more permits, which mean more need for the change to this law. It is a false equivalency to say that hitting a log or a 2x4 is the same as striking a submerged loon. That's, never mind. A regatta would be something like a crew race or an antique boat parade. Neither of those activities nor water skiing at 30 miles an hour have anywhere near the same danger to wildlife that high-speed boat racing presents. But please, this is not about any one body of water. It happened in Standish, but could easily happen anywhere in the state of Maine where high-speed boat racing is permitted in established loon nesting territories. The impact on the lake has been much more than the death of one loon, although in my opinion, that's tragic enough. The male loon killed in 2018 was part of a well-established nesting pair that had successfully raised a succession of chicks at the northwest end of the lake for many years. Now, we have excellent data about this pair because the male had been banded many years ago by biodiversity research in Portland and our own annual observations over the last decade of the loons and their chicks thriving in and protecting their territory on the lake. The loon was killed during the spring nesting season in 2018. As Kim said, there were no chicks fledged at that end of the lake in 2018 or 2019. It was not until this past summer that another loon pair successfully hatched and fledged 2 chicks. The potential danger to loons and other wildlife and the environment caused by high-speed boat racing is real, and it is preventable. No high-speed boat race should ever be permitted in an established loon nesting territory or any area where racing presents a threat to the wildlife or the environment. There are plenty of bodies of water in Maine where these races do not run the risk of endangering loons and other wildlife. The bottom line is LD 394 and the proposed amendment to the permit law doesn't ban anything. All it does is give IFW the tools to deny a permit when they determine that such a race is not appropriate at a given location. The ultimate authority rests where it always has, with the experts at the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. Thank you, Representative Ordway, for sponsoring this legislation. And thank you all for your time today and the opportunity to testify before this committee. Please, please support LD 394 and the friendly amendment that has been proposed this morning. If you have any questions, I'm happy to respond.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Again, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
One last try, Mr. Bennett. Nope, can't hear you, sorry. The next three people to testify are Dick Greenan, Bryce Hash, and John Robbins. So with that, we'll go back and start again with Dick Greenan.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Senator Dill, esteemed committee members, and hi, Scott. My name is Dick Greenan. I'm a year-round resident of Long Pond and Rome, chairman of the Belgrade Lakes Association's Loon Preservation Committee, chairman of the Rome Planning Board, and chairman of the Belgrade Lakes Interlocal Dams Committee. So as you can see, like all of us, I too have a vested interest in a healthy stewardship of our lands and our lakes. Now, I grew up on Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, and although we were aware of the loon population, we really didn't consider that our activities endangered their very existence. Well, fast forward 50 years, and in many ways we have come a long way, but in many ways we haven't. Last year on neighboring 8,500 acre Great Pond in the Belgrade Lakes, we had only one loon chick out of 12 to 13 established loon territories. Normally we can expect at least 6 to 7 chicks each season. So can we really afford to conduct race boat activities in such territories without taking appropriate measures? That is all LD 394 is asking, is that we consider our impact on the local wildlife today. So I hope you'll support us in our efforts to protect these natural resources that do need our help. So thank you all for your hard work and service. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, I'll move on. I don't see Bryce on here at the moment. Linda, did you see him in the?
No, I did not see him in the attendees room.
Okay, I'll move on to John Robbins. And followed by John will be Lee Addix, Susan Gallo, and Mark Pokris, and finally Richard Young. So there's 4 after this.
Good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes.
My name is John Alley Robbins Jr., commonly known as Jay. I live in Richmond in the Village on the Kennebec River overlooking Swan Island, also known as the Steve Powell Wildlife Management Area. Let me begin by thanking each and every one of you for your service to your communities and to our great state, especially in these trying times. I fully support LD 394 as amended and hope you will too. Here is why. When I was young, my family often visited Lake Wentworth in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, where my mother had spent her summers growing up. On these occasions, she was proud to show off to us her wonderful ability to carry on a conversation with any and all nearby loons. Mom and her love of these special birds made a lasting impression on me. In 1969, I came to live in Maine and to attend Bowdoin College. One of my favorite courses that year was ornithology with Chuck Huntington. A highlight was our trip to Kent Island Ornithology Station off Grand Manan Island in the Bay of Fundy. Especially exciting on that trip was my first ever sighting of an American bald eagle, though I was in Canada. I now regularly serve as guest educator for the Maine Maritime Museum's 3-hour tour up the Kennebec River through the Chops and Merry Meeting Bay to Swan Island and Richmond and return. I'm glad to report that often in that 3-hour trip, we now spot 30 or more eagles, a big change from 50 years ago. I attribute this fortunate turn of events to IFW's work with its many partnering agencies, communities, and nonprofit organizations. It shows the collaborative nature of how IFW accomplishes its missions. Since the mid-1990s, through more than 25 years, I have direct experience working closely with IFW. First was the Gray Swan Wildlife Foundation, started as a way to attract non-governmental funds to the Maine Wildlife Park in the Swan Island. Starting in 1995, I worked closely with the Friends of Merry Meeting Bay. Twice a year, we sponsor Bay Day for area 4th graders, getting them outdoors and dirty and wet at the Merry Meeting Bay Wildlife Management Area in Bowdenham and at Chop Point. Each year, we also sponsor tours on and around Swan Island, all with the help of IFW. In 1993, after we lost our chickadee checkoff, I purchased my first loon plate to support IFW and other outdoor activities. My 4369 CR loon plate proudly precedes me and follows me wherever I go to this day, 28 years later. In 2010, IFW started the State of Maine Swan Island Advisory Group. We meet annually to assess the needs of Swan Island. Multiple agencies, municipalities, and nonprofits work together under IFW leadership. For the last 11 years, I have also served as president of the Friends of Swan Island. We assist in raising non-governmental funds to help maintain the historic buildings on the island and to assist in educational activities highlighting the island resources. Steve Powell worked for IFW starting in 1942. As regional wildlife biologist, he oversaw Swan Island, now known as the Steve Powell Wildlife Management Area, and eventually all of the state wildlife management areas. Steve's wildlife records were later stored in his apple barn in Dresden. His nephew, Bob Gleason, turned these all over to the stewardship of the late Dr. Charles Burden and me about 7 years ago. We've now fully conserved and digitized 10.5 hours of black and white film, over 600 still photos, and some 7 or so banker's boxes of files documenting dates of arrival and numbers of each species of duck and geese, et cetera, et cetera. These have now all been placed at the Maine State Library where they're available to all of us, again with the help of IFW. If any of you are interested in the Friends of Merry Meeting Bay website, they have what they call their Cybrary, and there is a 45-minute talk displaying these films and photos and the work of Steve Powell. Now back to LD 394. I strongly support this bill as amended, specifically because it will give IFW important tools with which they can properly assess and regulate potential impacts on our fish and wildlife of events for which the department is already involved in granting permits. And I think I have shown IFW has a proven record of working collaboratively with other agencies, governmental units, and nonprofits in reaching decisions that benefit fish and wildlife and the Maine we love. Like the American bald eagle, the common loon is an iconic Maine bird. We have seen how IFW and partners working together has strengthened our eagle population. Let's now grant them additional tools to help strengthen our loon population. Please support LD 394 and the friendly amendment. Thank you for your time and attention to my testimony.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. Again, thank you. Next is Lee Addix.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished IFW committee members. My name is Lee Addix. I am Director of Loon Conservation Associates, and we are located in Portland, Maine. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you on behalf of approving LD 394. I've already submitted written testimony, and much of what I might have to offer in terms of general information has already been said And I would just say, I'd like to reiterate that most of the people that have spoken in support of this bill, that I support the things that they have said. I do want to say that as a person who's spent the last 25 years of my life studying loons, that I know a lot about the birds and their behaviors. And while I appreciate Mr. Kavanaugh's comments and all the things they've offered to do to potentially safeguard or prevent an event like what happened in 2018 from happening in the future, that it's my professional opinion that when it comes to loons, that's an impossible thing to achieve. Loons spend as much time below the surface of the water as they do above. And from someone who, again, has spent 25 years studying these birds, I know firsthand that I can spend up to an hour in a loon territory and think there are none there, only to find suddenly one surfaces out of nowhere, and I never even knew it was there. So to think that you can safeguard potential boat impacts in races like this with boats of this speed is, in my mind, an impossible task. And as I said in my written testimony, while I think there are lakes that have already been identified, Sebago and others, where there are large sections of open water out in the open part of the lake that are not loon territories, that to permit a race within a loon territory that's occupied by a breeding pair should not be done. And I would just, go on to say that, in the case of not just Watchik Lake, but many others, that loons are fiercely territorial. And again, unlike one thing that Mr. Kavanaugh said, loons are not going to vacate the area. And the area that this boat race is held is an established territory, and there's another territory directly abutting it. And loons are not going to vacate that territory, even when you've got high-speed boat races being held. And lastly, I would just like to say that another potential negative impact when it comes to loons is when you have a territory where they're raising chicks, and in this case, the pair in the territory where this race is held is exactly where these loons will breed their young or brood their young. And so that you can cause the adults and chicks to separate, which can lead to demise of either the adults and or the chicks, something that's important to recognize when you're looking at potential impacts of a race like this. So I'd just like to close by saying I am, based on all my knowledge and experience with loons, highly in favor of this language, which does nothing more than give the Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife the ability to consider the impacts to wildlife. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none. Next on my list is Susan Gallo.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, Chair Dill, Chair Landry, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Susan Gallo, and I'm the Executive Director at Maine Lakes. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today in support of LD 394. You've heard from many people, and it's been a long morning, so I'm going to keep my testimony very short. I did submit something in writing, and you can read more if you want to. But we support this bill because it gives the department the authority it needs to fully meet its mission of both promoting responsible recreation and protecting Maine's fish and wildlife and their habitat. While I've heard from people today that the department already has the authority to consider wildlife in issuing permits, it's our understanding, and you've heard some testimony today from several people. In our talks with department staff over the last many months, it's our understanding that a permittee who applies in a timely fashion and alerts the local municipalities as required will be issued a permit. They may have permit conditions attached, but it's our understanding that these conditions are not enforceable and that the need for those conditions to be enforceable is a big part of the reason for the department's support of this bill. So I'd encourage further conversations with the department about this detail for the work session. While you've heard specifics about Watchik Lake, our organization's involvement with this bill and our reason for testifying today is because we believe there is the potential for more boat races on more lakes across the state in the future. And we want the department to be able to consider these important resource impacts, especially water quality, as well as the wildlife issue you've heard today, when they're issuing permits to both today on a small number of lakes and tomorrow on potentially many more. Maine Lake supports responsible boating, and we want to keep promoting the boating industry and boating activities, but we want it to be in a manner that is compatible with wildlife and wildlife habitat. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today, and I hope you will support this bill. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Nope, seeing none. Next is Mark Pokris.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, great. Well, first of all, let me thank Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and the entire committee for allowing me the chance to testify this morning. I live in Scarborough. My family has had a camp on Toddy Pond in Penobscot for a great many decades. And I'm an active angler and boater and love being on the water in Maine most summers, every summer, most of my life. I'm here to testify in favor of LD 394 and the friendly amendment that goes with it. I don't want to repeat much of what has been said before because I think some very good comments were made. I particularly like Representative Hasenfuss's mention of his daughter and her interest in this whole thing, and would like to meet her someday. We'll all go out watching loons together. I also would like to second what Lee Addix was saying about loon biology and loon behavior. I have been studying loons for a little over 35 years. I am a wildlife veterinarian, and I work with loons in the field, sometimes with Lee and sometimes with other biologists. And I can second what Lee says. There can be a lot of loon activity on the lake, and even if the race organization is very well organized and has binoculars and means no harm, they can't control the loon behavior. And the loons will stay on their territory and will defend their territory. And so I think giving the IFW group statutory authority to regulate where races take place is critically important, because there are lakes in Maine where I think boat racing is perfectly appropriate and good for people and of no harm to other animals. And there are some lakes like Watchik where you can't have a race without being in a loon territory, and that just doesn't work. And I'll give you a little perspective on how I know that. I have worked with IFW for most of the last 30 years. I also work with the state fish and wildlife agencies for all the other United States in which loons nest and the Canadian provinces. I have personally examined more dead loons than any other person in the world. I have handled roughly 4,000 dead loons at this point. And my responsibility as a wildlife veterinarian has been to define what boat strikes look like in loon cadavers, whether they're blunt strikes or propeller injuries or things of that nature. And so we do the CSI thing. We do forensic pathology on loons and look for propeller injuries and remnants of fiberglass and boat paint that may have scraped off on cadavers. And so this issue of knowing when it's a boat strike and knowing when it's something else is not one that's taken lightly. And it's not a diagnosis that is made in the absence of information. IF&W biologists, particularly Danielle Doria, have worked a lot with me in recent years. They're very good at identifying these things. I work with a lot of Maine wardens, and I have tremendous respect for the agency. So I don't need to, I think, take more of your time at this point, but if there are questions on that end of things, I'd be happy to answer them. And again, I thank you for your time, and I hope you will support this important bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Thank you for your testimony. Just wondering, the autopsies that you may have performed on the loons over the years, have you found a lot of them have died from lead poisoning first?
Oh my gosh.
how would you go like first, second, third death
Well,
results?
This is the nature of scientific data. It depends on where you're asking me from. It changes over time and it changes in location. Certainly lead poisoning continues to be a serious issue here in Maine. We have some protective legislation that's been put into effect working with IFW and Maine Audubon Society and other groups over the years. It is not sufficient to eliminate the problem at this point. Lead poisoning in the last couple of years, and I would have to pull out the data and look at it, I think lead poisoning is no longer the #1 cause of death in loons in Maine. We have a lot more problem with boat hits. We have a lot more problem with entanglement in fishing line, monofilament line. Those are probably the big 3 causes of death in Maine. Another one that that's not our fault, it's nature taking its course, is actually bald eagle mortality. Somebody mentioned how well bald eagles have been doing in recent decades, and that's fabulous. In fact, I take great pride in it because I worked with a number of agencies on reintroducing bald eagles, but it turns out that bald eagles like to eat loons, particularly loon chicks. And so, on Toddy Pond, where I have our camp, last year we had 9 loon nests. 7 of those 9 nests hatched loon chicks, and we had no loon chicks survive the summer. We fledged no loons on Toddy Pond because either the chicks were taken by bald eagles or they were hit by boats. So it's a problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I don't live far from Toddy Pond, so I'm familiar with it. Thank you for your testimony.
More than welcome.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I will go on to our last person signed up to testify, Rich Young.
Good morning. My name is Rich Young. I live in Tenants Harbor, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before your committee. I'm speaking on behalf of this bill and hope that you can find a way to pass it and increase the protection offered these very cherished waterfowl. My presentation this morning is much less impassioned than some of the others, and I'm not a loon expert. I'm more of the common man wondering why there isn't protection for these birds and the allowance for these races. I think there's a way to do both. And I heard the Kiwanis presentation. It sounds like they're doing an excellent job. And obviously we love all the work they do for our community. Why we can't find a way to allow boat races and give the IFW authority to consider wildlife habitat protection is beyond me. I hope that with Mr. Wiggins' amendment and the work of your working committee, we can find a way to create legislation that is not so wide sweeping and restrictive as to eliminate racing in its entirety, but we can find a way to move the race out of habitats where these very cherished waterfowl live. I don't have much else to add. I hope your work can continue and we can protect these birds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, it appears that Mr. Bennett decided to call in to see if we can hear him via phone. So with that, we will go one more try here, Mr. Bennett, if you would like to talk to us on the phone. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett, can you hear me? If you can you unmute, please? And speak to us on your phone. I'm going to give
Hello, can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
My goodness. Boy, has this been frustrating. I apologize for this, but I'm not real familiar with Zoom. I've tried 2 computers and I just could, well, I'm glad it's working now. Okay for me to proceed?
Yes, please do so. Introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Okay, my name is Gary Bennett. I'm a registered Maine guide and a licensed commercial boat operator here in the beautiful state of Maine. My wife and I own and operate Snow Pond cruises and historical tours. We've lived here for 35 years. We're on Messalonsky Lake, which is also known as Snow Pond. Snow Pond is over 9 miles long, has 31 miles of shoreline, and it's the largest of the Belgrade Lake chain of 7. We cover 3 towns of Oakland, Sydney, and Belgrade. I have about 800 customers annually during my short summer season, and I've come to learn what our guests of all ages really enjoy. And it's the loons, the grebes, the eagles, and the giant-sized snapping turtles, oftentimes up to 75 pounds, as well as other wildlife in, on, and around our lake. I'm speaking today in favor of LD 394. I spend hundreds of hours on the lake during the summer, and I have an intimate knowledge of our local loon population, to the point that I actually name the babies. Don't laugh, it's marketing. Every year, I see at least one failed loon's nest, and they fail mostly because of human intervention, specifically speeding boats. Most recently is just last year. Loon nests are very close to the water's edge. Why? Because they can't walk on land. They have to push themselves on their bellies. In August of 2019, one of the highlights of my life was having the opportunity to rescue a baby loon that I had named Jordan. He was just 3 weeks old and he had a cyst on his foot. He was transported to Avian Haven. He underwent emergency surgery, and 48 hours later, they gave him back to me to return to his very upset parents. The local and national news coverage was nothing less than astounding, but the interest it generated from people all across the country, mostly via social media, was heartwarming to say the least. We love our loons because they're beautiful, they're majestic, they're peaceful, and they represent what Maine life should be. To me, it's inconceivable that a multi-million-dollar construction project can be brought to a screeching halt because of any one of 800 species of birds that might get in the way. But at the same time, Maine's Inland Fisheries and Wildlife has no statutory authority to restrict the location of boat races, exhibitions, and water ski events to protect the loon and its family, along with the other vulnerable wildlife. Something is wrong with that picture. Maine has over 4,500 loons, far more than any other state in New England. The reason for that? We have 3,500 lakes. These loons that are so important, along with other lake-dwelling wildlife, need and deserve the oversight and the protection that LD 394 will provide. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Bennett? Seeing none, I'm glad you finally could get in and testify, sir.
Phew, me too. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, goodbye. I have no one else. Linda, do you have anyone else to testify on this one?
No, I have no one on the list, Senator.
All right, then I will close the hearing on LD 394 and we'll move right on to LD 433 and Representative Andrews. Representative Andrews, you there?
One moment, Senator. Oh, he is.
I am. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yep, go right ahead, sir.
Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is John Andrews, and I represent District 73 in Western Maine. I'm here this morning to present my bill, LD 433, an act to allow winners of moose permits to sell sub-permittee selections. I was approached by my friend and constituent Dave Kelso to submit this bill on his behalf. Dave is a local business owner in Paris and a very experienced outdoorsman. Dave has spent more time in the woods than I ever will. If the committee doesn't mind, I'd like to yield my time to him to explain the background of the bill and to answer any questions that the committee might have. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for your testimony. We have a certain order will go in. He'll be up here in just a second, but are there any questions for Representative Andrews? All right, seeing none, I will move on to Bill Swan and then Dave Kelso. Bill, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Bill Swan, Director of Licensing here at the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, representing the department, speaking in opposition to LD 433. This bill eliminates the prohibition on selling a sub-permittee or alternate sub-permittee designation on a moose permit. One of the department's main goals in the management of all fish and wildlife is that the opportunity for harvest is fair and equitable across all segments of the public. The department wants people applying for a moose permit because they have an interest in moose hunting or harvesting one. We don't want people applying for a moose permit with the intent of making thousands of dollars as a result of selling the opportunity to harvest a moose to the highest bidder. If this legislation passes, the number of moose lottery applicants will increase significantly, with many people applying with the intent of selling their sub-permittee designation if they win a permit. Because more people will be applying, this will decrease the odds of winning a permit for applicants who are truly interested in hunting and harvesting a moose. Essentially, it will be taking moose hunting opportunities away from average citizens and giving the opportunity to those wealthy enough to afford it. A secondary consideration for this bill is that it will increase the administrative burden on the department in managing changes to sub-permittee and alternate sub-permittees. This bill would increase sub-permittee changes, many at the last minute, as sub-permittee sale deals go bad or permit holder receives an offer that they can't refuse from a different person. I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Are there any questions for Mr. Swan? I guess I have one quick one, Bill, if you don't mind. So if I was lucky enough to be drawn in the moose lottery, could I then go over to, say, Representative Mason and say, hey, Rick, I just got drawn. You know, I'm looking for sub-permittee. Would you like to be my sub-permittee? And if you want to slip me a few $100s, you know, I'll let you shoot it instead of me. Is there any law or against that?
There is currently a law against that. This would remove that.
All right. So it is against the law to sell you sub-permit. Okay.
The sub-permittee designation, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes,
Landry.
Senator Dill. Bill, were they able to do this in the past? Has there been a period in time when you could sell your sub-permittee?
You know, that's an excellent question. If so, it's been quite some time, but we could bring that back for the work session, that answer.
Would you please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none. Mr. Kelso.
Forgive me, I'm brand new with this Zoom stuff. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. My name is Dave Kelso. I live in South Paris, Maine. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and other distinguished members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm here to speak in favor of LD 43, an act to allow moose permit winners to sell their sub-permittee slot. This was submitted by Representative John Andrews at my request. First, a little history. I've been involved in the moose hunt since the very first modern day hunt in 1980. Back in the day, it was legal to sell your sub-permittee slot. During the late 80s into the 90s, we were getting $1,500 to $2,500 for the sub-permittee slot. Brokering the deal for the permit winner, he had to be on the hunt by law. The buyer paid for the expenses of the hunt. The permit winner would get half the moose meat. The buyer paid for everything. Maine resident got to go on a moose hunt, get some meat, make some money at the same time. It was a win for everybody. In the mid to late 90s, I'm not sure of the year, we got word of a very large out-of-state outfitting business that was looking to close in on this deal here in Maine. Their client list read like a Fortune 500 list. I was familiar with them as they were taking over the Kansas deer hunts, which I was guiding for at the time for another outfitter. To be honest, we could not get that loophole closed fast enough at that time. I did not want to see happen in Maine what was happening in Kansas. They would have taken over the Maine moose hunt. Not that long ago, rules were changed again to allow the winner of a permit to change or add a sub-permittee up to 30 days before the hunt. I saw where this was going, and people were again selling the sub slots on the black market. When I drew my second permit 4 years ago, I was besieged with letters from outfitters from Maine telling me my permit was worth money. They could not broker the deal, but they would be happy to give me the names and phone numbers of people to call to broker my own deal. One letter I wished I had saved had one line in it I had to laugh at. And it's, quote, "Hunting moose is a once in a lifetime experience for most hunters. If you've previously been successful, don't be selfish, give somebody else a chance." Currently, we have a select few guides that are allowed to sell permits through a drawing process. These hunts sell for anywhere from $9,000 to $20,000. It does not seem very fair to me that you allow a select few halves to profit from this when the average Mainer could use some money as well. The permits are still being sold on the black market. Just remove the stipulation of not being able to sell, bring it above board, tack on some rules in the work session that's going to allow the department to make some money. In closing, I'd like to thank the committee for your time in hearing this proposed bill. And I hope it does make it to a work session. And if it does, I hope I can be included. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, the next two speakers are David Trahan, followed by Don Klein. Mr. Trahan. You there, David?
Well, there. Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the committee, thanks for your patience as I was trying to unmute myself. I am testifying in opposition to this legislation on behalf of the ILA, but I would like to say that Mr. Kelso is right, I believe, and he highlights one of the concerns that we had when this committee authorized lodges to have moose permits and then go out and market them on the free market. We have also heard many of the rumors that Mr. Kelso has talked about around the amount of money that these permits are bringing. And it should be logical to anyone on the committee that you take a precious resource like moose and a moose hunt that is a significant expense now, and you allow people, particularly from out of state, to bid on those hunts, and you are going to see big numbers, and people are going to want to sell their opportunities. Whether Mr. Kelso understands it or not, he has brought a very important issue back to this committee that needs, I think, this committee to review it very carefully, and that is the commercialization of our moose hunts. So with that, I don't want to criticize Mr. Kelso because he is a cherished member of this organization and the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine. And I do appreciate the fact that he's brought this bill forward because I think it is something that the committee needs to discuss and we need to figure out. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, I want to make sure I fully understand your position on this. Is it your position or your organization's position that you're opposed to this legislation?
It is, but I'm glad that Mr. Kelso brought it forward because there is a lot of money out there that is changing hands related to the moose hunt. And we've always had a concern, Representative, I know you shared as well, that these resources belong to all Maine people. We allow non-residents to hunt for them, things like moose. And when you get down the road of allowing the sale of these hunts to the highest bidder, it in time pushes out the average person that is applying for a permit. So somewhere in the middle there's a balance, and I think we need to have this debate to figure out where it is. So yes, we're opposed to this legislation. I know you have another bill related to lodges, and I suspect a lively policy discussion and debate on that other bill as well. But we represent the average sportsmen and women that are out there, and we want them to have a fair chance at these hunts, and are concerned that where this resource is limited, it can be pulled in the direction of a commercialization of the moose hunt. And I think that best reflects the position of the ILA board.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you for your testimony. Next is Don Kleiner.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Don Kleiner. I'm in Union and representing the Maine Professional Guides Association. We too are opposed to this legislation for reasons very similar to the departments and share some of the concerns that Mr. Trahan brought up. I won't belabor your morning any further than that, but I think Mr. Swan's observation that the participation in the lottery would go up significantly simply as a way to make money, we believe would cheapen the resource, and it's not an appropriate use of that resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kleiner? Seeing none, I have no one on my list, else on my list to testify. So with that, I will close the hearing on LD, what was that, 433. And I'll open up the public hearing on LD 445, an act to allow deer baiting by hunters. Representative Lightfoot.
Thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fishery and Wildlife Committee. I am Peter Lightfoot, District 129, which is Clifton, Eddington, Holden, Northborough, and Vesey. And I bring before you a deer baiting bill. This one's a little bit different than maybe you've heard in the past. This one is, I have a proposal that there'd be a $5 fee for this right to bait, in a tree stand or on a ground blind. And each site would require a permit, rather a hunter wanted to do 2 or 3 or not, this money going to the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. As you know, presently we can sit in an apple orchard or an oak grove or on a food plot or an agricultural crop, and legally this would have the same ingredients except possibly adding grain and whatnot to the site. I know the department was kind enough to tell me that they would oppose this bill, but in their letter to me, I noticed that they had said that except for them on a very limited basis, that they would also use food plots. And I thought that was kind of interesting baiting deer. So with that, simple bill, I guess I would open it for questions from anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions for Representative Lightfoot? All right. Yes, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Lightfoot, this bill, the way you've got it proposed, sounds to me like you've got it statewide. Would you consider an amendment or anything to limit it to where the department felt it was needed to get a trial going? Like, I mean, there's certain zones, districts that definitely you wouldn't want baiting in at this time, but there's certain zones where you've got high density deer, car kills and that stuff. Would you consider any type of amendment?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think we could do that in work session. I think we bring that up. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Also, Representative Lightfoot, I was kind of thinking along those same lines, so I'd ask kind of the same question to you, like we've done with some other things in the past, like crossbow hunting and other things. Would you be interested if it wasn't limited like what Senator Black said, but even to like a 2 or 3 year trial basis to, then at the end of that time, it would have to be assessed by the department to see what's happening.
Yeah, I think a sunset clause, like you mentioned, would be a great idea. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Representative Lightfoot? All right. Seeing none, I will turn. Is there anyone else that wants to testify on this? Is there anything before testify? No. I will move on to Nate Webb for the department.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I am Nate Webb, the Wildlife Division Director for the department, representing the department, speaking in opposition to LD 445. This bill authorizes the baiting of deer by licensed hunters. The department strongly opposes the use of bait for deer hunting, except in very limited controlled circumstances, such as special hunts that are established to address issues with overpopulated deer. Concentrating deer at bait sites exposes them to disease through saliva and fecal matter. In particular, baiting can promote the spread of chronic wasting disease, or CWD. CWD is widely viewed as one of the most significant challenges in the history of modern wildlife conservation. If established in Maine, CWD may have devastating impacts on the state's deer and moose herds, our hunting heritage, and Maine's economy. As an agency, we have been working very hard to prevent the spread of CWD, and we are currently collaborating with the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry and the USDA to implement a comprehensive CWD prevention plan for our state. Allowing the use of bait will exacerbate the transmission of CWD if it migrates to Maine. We have similar concerns over supplemental feeding of deer, and although it is currently legal, we expend a significant amount of effort trying to mitigate the negative impacts of this activity. In addition to increasing the risk of disease transmission, baiting of deer may alter or increase the success rates of hunters, and as a result, the department may need to shorten hunting seasons or otherwise reduce hunting opportunities to keep harvests at sustainable levels. It is very important to note that in most of the state, northern, eastern, and western Maine, we are trying to grow the deer population, and we are currently meeting our harvest objectives and do not need to increase success rates. We are aware that some hunters have expressed concerns that baiting is not legal for deer in Maine, while hunting over food plots or agricultural crops is legal. Although we understand this perspective, the reality is that food plots and agricultural crops do not create a significant risk of disease transmission because they do not concentrate deer fecal matter and saliva in the same manner as a bucket of grain or a pile of apples. In food plots and crops, the edible portion of the individual plants are consumed and not available for the next animal to spread saliva or fecal material. Planted crops are also available to deer 24 hours a day, unlike bait, which can be placed in a manner to encourage visitation by deer at a specific time of day, potentially increasing hunter success rates. We also believe there could be increased conflicts among hunters or between hunters and landowners as a result of baiting during hunting season. During the 129th legislature, this committee directed the department to review the scientific literature, explore and discuss options with staff and stakeholders, and develop recommendations for how to proceed with feeding and baiting of deer. We presented a detailed report to the committee in January 2020, which recommended no changes to the current prohibition on baiting for deer, and we have included this report for your reference. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Thank you. Representative Lightfoot.
Thanks, Senator Dill. Nate, I know chronic wasting disease is very important. What's your feeling about all of these scents that are being made out of state that most hunters are using?
That's a great question. So in the context of chronic wasting disease, there is some evidence that it could potentially be transmitted through urine-based lures and scents. There have been a few states nationwide that have banned the sale and use of urine-based lures for hunting deer and other similar species. That is not a step that has been taken here in Maine. My understanding there is that there is still a significant amount of research underway looking into that issue and ways that the urine-based lure industry might be able to minimize or eliminate the risk of CWD transmission through the use of those lures.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. Next two speakers are David Trahan and Don Kleiner.
Senator Dill, Representative Landry. Can you folks hear me, first of all?
Yep.
Yes, okay. I'm still David Trahan, representing the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine ILA, testifying in opposition to an LD 445, an act to allow deer baiting by hunters. Baiting deer for the purposes of wildlife management can be an effective tool to manage deer and other type of wildlife like bears. This proposal makes sense in some states where deer populations far exceed habitat carrying capacity and where overpopulation is causing disease and suffering, and in some cases when nuisance deer are causing significant private property destruction and public safety concerns. The department can and does use baiting to lure deer to sharpshooters and agents that call the herd, and I believe there was a hunt in Islesboro, or at least proposed. I believe the hunt did occur to do just that. The agents of the state, usually on an island setting, are participating in an event that no one would argue is hunting. It is an event that is a sad day for wildlife management because it marks our failure as stewards of our natural resources to properly manage white-tailed deer as the precious natural resource that they are. The reason we oppose this legislation is, as a state, we do not need baiting to manage deer. Thus, it appears the proposal is to make it easier to harvest a deer. No one expects deer hunting to be easy. The difficulty in harvesting a deer is part of the challenge and lure of hunting. Our organization supports harvest methods needed to maintain a healthy deer population and practices we believe a majority of the public supports. In November, we polled our members whether they supported baiting deer during hunting season. Although we have not tallied all of our surveys, I had SAM volunteers randomly sample 100 of those surveys. The results were as follows. 80 of those did not support baiting deer. 11 said yes to supporting the baiting of deer. 8 were undecided, and 1 left the answer blank. The surveys were not sorted or viewed by staff prior to their tally, and we are confident this overwhelming opposition to baiting during hunting season for deer will continue throughout the remaining surveys. At this time, we do not feel deer baiting is needed to maintain a healthy statewide white-tailed deer population, and for that reason, we oppose LD 445. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Trahan? All right, going on to thank you for your testimony. Mr. Kleiner, you're up.
Thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry. The committee has a written statement for me. I will not read that. But a couple of points that I think are salient here. The first is this is a statewide statute that's been proposed. And our concern is primarily for those regions where deer are not plentiful. And in fact, this may have a detrimental effect on the population. You already heard from the department that they would respond by potentially shortening the season, which would have a tremendous impact on our membership. A shorter season is frankly less product to sell. The second issue that I would like to raise that's not in my written testimony is 1 year ago, I would not have even spoken to you about the impact of disease on the economic aspects of anything. And I think that point has been made in spades in the last year. Hopefully we can come out of this, but it certainly makes the point that concern about chronic wasting disease is significant and it could have a tremendous impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kleiner? All right, seeing none, I have no one else on my list to testify. Doesn't appear to be anybody. Linda, do you have anyone else that wants to testify?
Not that I can see, Senator, nothing on the list.
Okay, thank you. Then I will close the hearing on LD 445, an act to allow deer baiting by hunters. And with that, we have two work session. Yes, Representative Lightfoot. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Senator, I wonder if we might take like a 15-minute break. My computer's drained pretty good here. I'd like to replug in.
Sure. If people would like to take, let's see, it's 12. How about if we come back right at 12:30? It's 12:17. Will that work for everybody?
Works great for me.
All right. We'll be back at 12:30 to continue with our work sessions with Representative Landry. Thank you, everyone.
All charged.
Good.
Are you charged?
I'm charged.
Looks like you gave Representative Martin the idea to charge too. I just saw him pick up his charger, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Senator Dill, did I hear you say that you thought that Representative Lightfoot was recharged?
I won't even comment.
Black.
We've got a few more people to come in, I see.
Yep. Well, you've got your quorum, so.
We are. I guess we can get started on this. Welcome back. I'm Scott Landry, represent District 113. I'll be presiding over 2 work sessions for the Inland Fishery and Wildlife Committee. I guess we're all pretty familiar with what we're doing. Senator Black is an expert on Zooming, so if he can do it, I'm sure we can all do it. The purpose of this meeting is for the committee to receive information from staff and others in order for members to consider the legislative proposals before them and make recommendations or reports to the legislature. Only committee members, the committee analyst, and those specifically invited to attend will be participating in the work session via Zoom. Members of the public wishing to observe this meeting, it is being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel and will also be recorded for viewing after this meeting is concluded. We are also broadcasting the audio of this meeting on the legislature's website, www.mainelegislature.org. Please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And everybody's name appears to be correct. This is a public meeting, and I must remind you that while we are meeting, discussion must happen on screen and not by way of Zoom or chat, or the Zoom chat, excuse me. If you're having technical difficulties, you must have gotten them already fixed, otherwise you wouldn't have been here. Members will speak with the leave of the chair. Materials are being provided electronically for this meeting. Has everybody been able to find the link to see all the testimony on the website? It's really nice, but I'm still getting hundreds of legislatures from Representative Ordway's bill. That'll stop, I hope. We do have a quorum. And I will now call for members to introduce themselves, starting with Representative Martin. John Martin.
I'll go first. Yeah, John Martin, House District 151, Allagash to Fort Kent, down Route 11 all the way through the communities of Route 11 to Oxbow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Danny Martin, House 150, located in northern Aroostook County.
Senator Dill.
Yes, I'm Jim Dill. I represent Senate District Number 5, Northern Penobscot County, and I'm from Old Town.
Representative Lyford.
Thank you. Representative Peter Lyford, District 129, which is Clifton, Eddington, Holden, North Roar, and Vesey.
Thank you. Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Black, representing the Senate District 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec.
Representative Hepler.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which is Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, Dresden, and a piece of Richmond.
Representative Mason.
Thank you, Representative Landry. I'm Rick Mason, District 56 of Lisbon.
Thank you. Representative Neto.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Kathy Neto, representing District 78, all of Winslow, and a small portion of Benton. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Ordway.
Yes, good afternoon, Representative Landry. Thank you. I'm Lester Ordway. I represent District 23, which is most of the town of Standish.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else here. Is there anyone, Linda?
Representative Alley, I'm not sure his box is there. I'm not sure if he's available to speak or not.
I don't. Well, if he comes on, we can bring him in. We'll start the work session on LD 184, act to minimize the propagation of invasive aquatic plants. And Rachel, I believe you have a workup on this.
I do. Thank you. This was emailed out to committee members and is also available on the committee materials page for IFW. I will share my screen. So we're starting our work session with LD 184, an act to minimize the propagation of invasive aquatic plants. This bill requires a person, when removing a vessel from an inland water body, to drain the vessel and other equipment, and to remove or open drain plugs, bailers, valves, and other devices to drain the water before that vessel is transported. It exempts emergency response vessels from these requirements. There were a number of individuals who provided testimony. You can see the list here, and I have gone ahead and summarized the main points brought up in the proponent's testimony. Representative Reisman, the sponsor, did offer an amendment with his testimony to address the plugs or valves associated with air holding compartments of pontoons. I've included some additional information as well as some notes that were brought up during the work session or that were information the committee requested. Under current statute, which I have included, we can take a look at in just a moment, there is a penalty attached, and I've included the penalty here. So there was a question about what the penalty would be under this section and if one was in fact included. So in the statute where this would fit, this is the penalty associated with that section. The LD also references the term or the definition of the term vessel, as described in another section. So I've included the definition to which they are referring here. LD 927 from the 129th first regular is the same bill that's been presented to you today. So this bill has come before the committee in the past. LD 927 was reported out as ought not to pass. At that same time, during the 129th first regular, there were 3 other bills concerning invasive aquatic species that were also considered by the committee: LD 235, 927, and 967, all from the 129. 2 of those 3 bills were also reported out as ought not to pass. LD 235, again attached, which is an act to increase funding to contain and manage the spread of invasive aquatic species, was passed, ought to pass as amended, and is now Public Law Chapter 264. And that did increase the funding that was mentioned during the public hearing that goes both to Marine and IFW in order to manage the courtesy stations, also for enforcement of the sticker program. In summary there. I'll also note this bill has an emergency preamble as well. There's no fiscal status determined yet. And I have included a variety of links down here. There's a lot that goes into these programs about invasive aquatic plants. So I've included the various statutes that refer to that. And here, for example, the Lake and River Protection Fund and sticker, but there's also the Invasive Aquatic Plant and Nuisance Species Fund as well, and then how those revenues are divided up. There was also mention frequently during testimony of the Clean, Drain, Dry program, and I've included the brochure that the Maine DEP puts forward. So that if you're not familiar with the program, you can reference that there. And then current statute is included at the end of the bill analysis for your reference.
Thank you.
I'll stop sharing. And I'm happy to take and answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Rachel. Representative Hepler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if this is a question for Rachel or for people on the committee who were on the committee last time. What were the reasons it was voted ought not to pass in the last session? Anybody can answer that.
Senator Dill, do you recall?
Yeah, I think that basically the committee felt that there was already regulations in place that safeguarded against what was happening. And when you start looking at the drain plugs here and stuff, even though you drain it, you don't necessarily completely drain it. So you could still spread it from one lake to another. So you still got some stuff in the hold, and you go to another lake, you get water in there, and then, it kind of like floats it up and you drain it out there. So it was felt that this really didn't help any more with what was already being done. And it was just an added a burden, I think, was pretty much the way the committee felt.
Thank you. Representative Ordway?
Yeah, I would answer that question with my statement that my biggest concern last time this bill came up, and it hasn't been addressed, is that if a boater came from a state where this is not done, where they don't drain, and say Massachusetts, and they came to Maine, and when they were finished boating, they were required to drain, they could very well potentially be spreading unwanted species. There's no provision for a spot where they could drain where it wouldn't go back into one of our lakes. Well-intentioned bill, but the way it's worded and the way we looked at it last time, I think the unintentional consequences of this bill would be devastating.
Thank you. Representative Hepler?
So sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the educational program, the volunteers and whatnot seems to be doing an adequate job of this is what you're saying. I guess that's a question for either Senator Dill or for Representative Ordway.
I think one of the things, this may be where we want to have someone from the department come up to kind of address what they're doing and what they think. But I'll let Representative Ordway answer your question also. But
Yeah, I would also defer to the department, but yeah, we do a pretty good job. It's just, like I said, well-intentioned, but the things that we voted last time to reject this bill on have not been addressed, and that's live wells, that's bait bait buckets or whatever. They're not addressed, and they could potentially be devastating. But I would absolutely defer to the department.
Thank you. Commissioner, are you going to speak for the department?
Thank you, Representative Landry and members of the committee. I'm Judy Camuso, Commissioner of Maine Fish and Wildlife. And I think actually Francis Brodigan is on the call, and he could probably answer some of your questions.
Okay. Thank you.
He's on his way in.
Thank you.
There we are.
Welcome,
Senator. Thank you. Senator Dill, Representative Landry. I'm Francis Brodigan with the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I work as the Director of Fisheries and Hatcheries. I'd like to offer this insight. Both our agency and the Department of Environmental Protection is very interested in providing additional awareness and outreach as it relates to clean, drain, dry. In fact, even before this legislation was before us, we'd already been in talks and conversation about coordinating both agencies and the resources that are available in both agencies to provide a lot more awareness to the public. Our agency has a phenomenal I&E division, and we really have some great capacity to generate and disseminate information. We're the ones that are issuing those stickers and boat registrations. We have capacity within our licensing division to also get information out. Our warden service is part of our frontline field staff out there interacting with the public. We haven't really been part of a kind of a multi-state agency campaign, if you will, to kind of spread the word. DEP has started down that path. And they've been working with some of our partners like Lakes Environmental Association, and they're creating awareness through some of those courtesy boat inspections. But I think we've just begun to scratch the surface. And our desire would really be to take a non-regulatory approach, working with our sister agency and developing more of a formal campaign to create that needed outreach and awareness. And then at some point, if folks are still feeling like at that point that we haven't made the needed headway, and there was value in taking a look at and some statutory changes to enforce some of that messaging, that would seem to be very appropriate. But regardless of how this bill tracks here, our agency is very committed to moving forward with DEP. We've already acknowledged that and work on a formal campaign to provide broader messaging to the public on this subject. Invasives is a huge issue. We're deeply concerned about it.
Any questions for Mr. Brodigan? Senator Black?
In regards to what I heard from Representative Ordway, which I didn't hear in the testimony from the department, I don't believe, or maybe I missed it when we had the public hearing. I heard that it was a very tough job to regulate it, to monitor it, to enforce it. But I didn't hear the comments that Representative Ordway talked about being very dangerous to drain these wells, and from what I got from the public hearing, I thought, well, gee, if the department, if it's out there, then it's going to be inhibitive for people to do it. They'll do it because they're afraid of the fine or whatever. But I hadn't, going back to maybe the department could speak to what Representative Ordway was bringing up just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and I think during our testimony too, we had touched on that issue, concerns that we have, particularly from boats coming in from out of state. Again, we've got a lot more in invasive species in other states that we don't have here, and on top of that, they're much more prevalent in those other states. So, you know, there's certainly a high risk for when boaters come to the state. Of course, we're a tourist state. We really want to see folks coming here and enjoying themselves, but there's just some things we'd rather not see brought into the state. I think as part of this this campaign, it'll be very important to talk about that message about not draining actually while you're on the boat ramp. I'll be honest, I think that's a big issue and it's a big concern. We want people to drain. We want to encourage them to drain all their equipment, their boats, so that everything arrives dry. But we don't want that drainage to actually take place so that it can drain back into waters of the state. That's definitely a concern here, and that would definitely need to be a component of our outreach program.
Thank you. I see Representative Reisman's here. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. In response to Representative Ordway's concern about boats coming from out of state, I have some information that came through Lakes Environmental. And I think the key to enforcing this or to making people aware of it is to have the boats inspected before they get into the lake. They cited an example that in the spring of 2018, a zebra mussel was found on a boat coming from the St. Lawrence River in New York. The mussel was removed, but this led to questions about potential standing water in the boat. And I believe what that infers is that our front line of defense in all this is our courtesy boat inspectors, and they will be doing the job of making sure that these kind of elements are not sneaking into the state, so to speak. So I don't know if that satisfies Representative Ordway, but you know, this is a process and we're going to have to make sure that we stay on top of it. There's no doubt that the invasive species plants are increasing in the state of Maine, not decreasing. And by waiting for a disaster to happen in the state, by then it may be getting a little bit too late and too costly to mitigate it. So this is the right way to provide a format that will help in that defense for the state.
Thank you, Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd defer to Representative Ordway if he wants to make a comment regarding a comment made by Representative Weissman.
Thank you. Representative Ordway.
Yes, thank you, Representative Martin. Yeah, this all came up in the last time, and the concern is enforcement. If someone, and the inspectors, the volunteer inspectors that we have, God bless them, they do a wonderful, fantastic job. Glad they found zebra mussel. Those would be devastating. My big issue with this is there's no provision where they're going to drain. Now, states like Vermont or New Hampshire, they have these drain laws, but states like, so they could come here, be very clean, wonderful. States like Connecticut or Massachusetts or New Jersey, where milfoil and unwanted species are prevalent, ungodly amounts. Boats could come from those states, back up to a boat ramp, go for a boat ride, come out, drain whatever they picked up here, along with whatever they brought in from out of state. And there's other things with this, the draining of bait wells and bait tanks or live wells that water came from other places. Those would be being dumped into our lakes.
Thank you, Representative Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I too have some concerns about the enforcement of this entire piece of legislation. And it would seem to me that this could very well be an administrative nightmare for our warden service and others to try to enforcement. I note that the commissioner is still live, and I'm just wondering if they could comment on the enforcement issue and whether or not this would be an issue to enforce.
Yes, certainly, Representative Martin. Thank you. Yeah, we have significant concerns with how we would be able to enforce this. I think Colonel Scott spoke to this in his original testimony, and even just their ability to inspect a boat. I'm not sure that he's confident that they could do that. And so when and how we would enforce this is highly questionable.
Thank you.
Representative Hepler.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry for all the questions. Don't we have, addressing the out-of-state boat, don't we have a program at the Turnpike or when we enter the state that talks about this or provides this service? Or am I, because I'm a canoeist and I don't train my boat. I'm not that, but it seems like I remember seeing something like that. Am I making that up?
Commissioner?
Representative, so to answer your question, I'm not positive about the, opportunities to drain your boat on the Turnpike. There may be some, but surely most people aren't actually, I don't think, stopping to do that. I think what some of the other states have at their public boat launches, at least, is a sort of a specific area that has built-in drains where they have approval, sort of a designated drain area, which at this point we don't have at our facilities. And I think we would want to work to try and establish some of those specific and kind of detailed drain areas where you could drain and then contain the water. Francis, feel free to jump in if I'm misspeaking here.
No, you're spot on, Judy. And I think as part of our commitment to trying to manage this important issue, as we either revamp existing boat launch facilities or construct new ones, we'll actually be working to incorporate designs that will allow people to drain and dewater in places where that water is not going to end up back in the lake. I mean, that's my greatest concern with looking at any of the statutory components to this bill, is that there might be some allowance for people to drain water and that water end up back in the lake. And as Representative Ordway had mentioned, we've got enough boat traffic coming into the state that could generate a lot of issues and concerns. I think at one point we did have some radio programming on the interstate, creating some awareness regarding the need to conduct inspections. We've certainly utilized fairly sizable signs at some of the key entry points coming into the state as well. But it's been basically that type of outreach that we've really been doing to create that awareness for non-resident boats coming into the state.
Any other questions?
Well, can I respond to some of those comments, if that would be okay?
Certainly, Representative Reisman.
Thank you very much. I don't think there's too many people out there who would not deny that the issue with invasive species is not going away soon. And on the contrary, it's getting worse. Now, as it happens with some laws in the state that get passed, there's leniency involved in the beginning while the educational process goes on. But that doesn't mean that you don't step forward and say these kind of things need to happen. We need methods in place to prevent the spread of invasive species in this state. And this bill will do that. Doesn't mean everybody that doesn't follow is going to get fined $3,000 or whatever the law says. It means they're going to become aware of it and they're going to be sensitive to it, and that the state is backing the proposal and the attitude that we don't want this happening in our state. And yes, there are other states that already have this type of stuff in effect, and I think it's working in those states. And we just don't want to be the brunt of people who don't want to make it happen. So I strongly encourage you to think more about what this law is trying to accomplish rather than the enforcement side of it for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ordway.
Yeah, if I just could respond to that. if we pass a law that is put into statute, I would fully expect any law that we pass to be enforced. For us to create a law, to leave it up to interpretation of somebody else or put that burden onto a law enforcement officer that, hey, this is the law, but you don't have to enforce it. We need to have these laws well thought out, all of these issues looked at, and put together a solid statute. I am totally against creating a law and then ignoring that law.
And Representative Reisman, I had a question. Would you expect the volunteer boat inspectors to be enforcing this?
Volunteer boat inspectors would be making sure that people are aware of why this is in place. Not saying, here's a ticket for not following the law. That's not what the intent of it is. It's to educate them that this is a serious problem and we want their cooperation, preventing our lakes from being degraded. Now, example, Les says, well, we can't have a law without it being enforced. But take, for example, seatbelts. When that law was starting to come into effect, there were many, many people who were stopped and given warnings about seatbelts, not having seatbelts. And yes, there was a law that said you needed to wear one, but the intent was to make people aware that we need to go ahead in the future and know why those laws are in place. I think that worked in that particular case. I think it can work in this particular case also.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner?
Thank you, Representative. Is it possible that we could just have Colonel Scott address some of these questions about law enforcement? I think he's in the waiting room and available to comment if possible, Linda.
How is that? Can you folks hear me?
Looking good. Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm Dan Scott. I'm the colonel with the Warden Service. I just wanted to make a couple comments in addition to what Francis had added. For one thing, the main Warden Service isn't going to be, we don't want to be the barrier to, obviously, to the prevention of the spread of invasive species in Maine. We clearly completely support all the efforts of the volunteer boat inspectors, and as well, our staff regularly participates in spreading the message and enforcement of the weed transportation law, we call it, or the milfoil law, however you want to term it. To illustrate the point, in 2019, we had over 70 enforcement contacts regarding folks who did not have a Lakes and River Protection sticker displayed on their boat. The way that the registrations work now, it's included in a resident's boat. So that's most likely non-resident contacts that we had. As well, in 2020, we had over 60 law enforcement contacts with folks without the Lakes and River Protection stickers. So we obviously we're kind of the front line on the enforcement side of these efforts, and will continue to be part of the solution. The challenges we look at here is when somebody's violating the law, there's usually one of two things. One, there's a benefit to them. If somebody shoots an extra deer, it's probably because they wanted to kill an extra deer, or they're ignorant to the law. In the case of draining your boat, there's really no benefit to not draining it. Really, there could be a detrimental effect to operating it with too much water in your boat as far as steerage and other things. So if people typically have their own routine when they're operating their boat and when they put it in and out of the water, as I'm sure many folks on this call have motorboats and do the same thing. So we really feel that folks who aren't draining their boats or who are improperly draining their boats probably just don't understand the correct way to do it, as Francis had kind of alluded to, and an educational campaign of when to do it, where to do it, and how to do it may be just as effective as if you don't do this, you'll get a ticket for it. Because there's a certain number of people out there that won't do it just to not be in compliance or just to be defiant. I really think that most of the boating public will comply. They just need to understand that it's an issue. Many people probably don't realize that it is. And I think some of the points that are being made today, maybe by Representative Ordway, is the way that, at least that I read the current bill, it speaks to people who are removing their boats from inland waters and they must drain their boat. So it's really driving folks to drain their boat right there on the boat ramp. And as we talked about, that depending on what water is in your boat, that may be the last place that we want it drained. So again, we're going to be part of the solution to this, along with the Lakes and Rivers Protection volunteers. To answer the question on the coming into the state of Maine, I do think there's a sign there now that talks about transportation of invasive plants. And I know that early on during the educational process, they were actually giving out flyers and so forth to people coming through the toll plaza about transportation of invasive aquatics on your boats and trailers. So I do think that a lot of those pieces are in place. But as far as the enforcement side, what I brought up during my regular testimony was just, it's more than just, are your plugs out of your boat? When push comes to shove, if we're going to properly follow through with this law, it requires a stop, which is basically a seizure as they go to leave the boat launch, and then a search of the boat and trailer to see whether or not there's any water in the boat that hasn't been drained out. Now, we understand that that's part of our mission, is to conduct those operations, but possibly a few years of real strong educational efforts ahead of that, so that by the time it gets to our staff at the boat launch, everybody's already familiar with this clean, drain, dry, so to speak, outreach, and it won't be an issue. I know that during the public hearing, other agencies were for it, boat retailers were for it. If there's an educational push from all sides of the aisle, I think that we can greatly reduce the number of folks that aren't draining their boats anyway, because it's really there's really no benefit to not do so. It's just where you do it and when. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Representative. Colonel, do you know if there's any campaign or money available at the toll booth this spring, summer, fall to pass out brochures like that?
I don't believe our agency is part of the money available. There is a statutory split, where the money goes. It's an 80-20 split. Most of the money that comes to our agency goes to covering the costs of the game wardens who are on the lakes and waters, educating the boating public. We do have some of those flyers that we pass out to boaters as we inspect them. Last year, I think we inspected a little over 25,000 boaters. And as we talk with them, especially boats that are from other states, we try to educate them on the transportation of invasives. As far as which agency, I think it was a combination, or potentially DEP, that actually provided those flyers. And like I said, I do know in the past they were given out at the toll booths. I'm not sure if that continues today or not.
Thank you.
I would think with the new toll system we're having on the turnpike, that would be rather ineffective, where most people would be going through at 60 or 70 miles an hour.
Yep. The other thing, Representative Landry, I appreciate is that you mentioned is, you're right, things have changed from 14 or 15 years ago when we started this campaign. And now the way that I see much of that messaging going out is through registration email contacts that we have from the 110,000 boats we register every year. We have contact information for most of those boaters, and our I&E folks have the ability to disperse that in a much quicker manner, the same way we all get messaging from emails, Twitter, Facebook, all the different ways that they follow us, and we can reach a much broader group in a much shorter period and much more efficient time frame than we could 15 years ago. And I suspect that part of that initiative would be from our I&E folks doing that type of messaging.
The person responsible for the talking signs, the on the turnpike, he ought to be involved.
I believe we have a portion of that as well. The same folks I just mentioned it through I&E deal with the radio station. So yeah, that's potentially an option. But I would bet that more people read their Facebook pop-ups as they come into Maine than tune to that. It's a good idea though, and we have used it, and we can look into that.
Thank you. Commissioner, did you have a statement?
No, I was just going to follow up on that, Representative Landry, and that we could maybe work with the Commissioner of DOT to have some of those, the sandwich board things that on the side that have those pretty crafty messages on there about, you know, different times a year. Maybe they would put one on about to clean, you know, clean your boat up.
Exactly. It'd be more cost effective. Is there any other discussion on this?
Yeah. Can I add one more thing? The bill that I have in front of me that I've presented, I have to admit, I don't see anything in my particular bill about the enforcement side of it. So somehow it got added in there. Could we make this as a non-enforceable law that there's nothing in there that would cost anybody any money for the time being, or you know, it'll basically be an educational process. That way you don't have to worry about enforcement. You're talking about making sure that courtesy boat inspectors are educating people. And meanwhile, the details of finding spots to empty a boat or whatever can be worked on by the department and the various lakes associations to come up with something that works. But you know, I think there's a way we can make this work for the best for everybody and not have it be something where we're taking away people's liberties or trying to enforce them, a law on them that they don't need. So I put that out there as a sponsor. We do something to pull that piece out of the legislation.
Thank you, Representative Ordway. Would you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah.
Much better.
I'm really hating this Zoom. But I would hope that our courtesy inspectors are educating and people to drain their boats, but drain them properly and away from the lakes. But to have a law, to enact a law with no teeth, why? So with that, I would make a motion of ought not to pass.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Seconded by Representative Lyford. Any more discussion? Seeing none, I would call for a vote then. Linda?
Yes. So the motions ought not to pass, and I'll start with Representative Lyford.
No, do not pass.
So you're in favor of the motion ought not to pass.
Correct.
Representative Mason.
Yes.
Representative Hepler.
Yes.
Senator Dill.
Yes.
Senator Black.
Yes.
Representative Landry.
Yes.
Representative Danny Martin.
Yes.
Representative Ordway.
Yes.
Representative Nadeau.
Yes.
Representative John Martin.
Yes.
And Representative Alley, I'm not sure if he can hear us or not, if he's still with us on this. No, apparently not. So that gives us 10 in favor with 3 absent. Ought not to pass.
Very good. The work session on LD 184 is now closed. Ought not to pass, 10 in favor of ought not to pass, and 3 absent. Thank you. We will now move on to the work session on LD 88, an act to amend Maine's wildlife laws regarding species of special concern. Rachel?
Okay, LD 88, excuse me, scroll up. An act to amend Maine's wildlife laws regarding species of special concern. The bill does the following two things. Number one, it defines species of special concern to mean a species that may become endangered, threatened, or extirpated. In current statute, the term of special concern is used when referring to permits to possess wildlife in captivity. The phrase is used twice when specifically referring to reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates. Those references are changed to reflect the newly defined term species of special concern. The department currently has a process and maintains a list of species of special concern that is established by policy. And it is that list that current statute is referring to in section 12152. The second thing that this bill does is it reduces to 1 the number of public hearings that are required in order for the commissioner to make a recommendation to the legislature for a change to the endangered species list or the threatened species list. Happy to explain both of those in detail if there are questions, or in more detail. I've listed the testimony that was provided. In that testimony, 2 possible amendments or suggestions were put forward. If in looking at the testimony above, one of the concerns by people both for, against, and not for and against had to do with the phrasing of regarding the hearings. As it was written, it makes it so that only one public hearing is, that there will be only one public hearing. And what we heard from the department is that they would like it to be only one hearing is mandatory or required, but that more hearings could be used if necessary. So there was a suggestion put forth both by Eliza Donahue from Maine Audubon and Patrick Strauch from the Maine Forest Products Council to help clarify that one hearing could be held, but only one is statutorily required. And if you'd like to see their specific suggestions, you can refer to their testimony. Additionally, Patrick Strauch put forward some suggested language to help provide some parameters for how the list of species of special concern might be used. I've included his 3 parameters that he put forward from his testimony there for you to review. In terms of notes or issues, as I said, as the bill is written, it reads that there will be only one public hearing. In the definition as it is written, species of special concern, the definition for that, uses phrases such as particularly vulnerable and could easily. Those are subjective and open to interpretation, which may be a problem moving forward. No fiscal status has been determined as of yet. And then for your reference, I have included the current statutes that are being referred to. And then also from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife's webpage, their section on species of special concern, which includes the list, as well as the handbook that on page 17 refers to the criteria that's used currently to identify a species of special concern. And that is through the whole process of identifying endangered and threatened species. So it uses that same process. And the criteria you can find outlined here in the handbook on page 17. I'll take any questions. Yes.
Thank you, Rachel. Do we have any questions for Rachel? Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rachel, a question to Rachel. Rachel, on your notes, issues section of your comments. On your second bullet, do you have any preferred or recommended language that would clarify your concern?
I do have some suggested language that I could put forward. If you'd like me to share it at this time.
Yeah, if you could. Also, if I may, Mr. Chair, would the sponsor of the legislation be agreeable to on the first bullet on the issues to add a phrase that would allow for an additional public hearing if in fact the department suggested that be the case?
Commissioner?
Certainly, we would have no trouble having more than one hearing if we felt that was necessary at the time. I think our goal was to just not be required to have multiple, but to was certainly happy to have that option.
Thank you. Senator Dill.
Yeah, I think if you put in there, perhaps at least one meeting should be held. And I think that's the wording that we have to use because we just did this over in ACF, and you can't say a minimum of one. I think you have to say at least one. So I think that would clarify it, that you have at least one, and then it's up to you after that.
Are there any other questions or concerns?
And I'm pulling up that language, so just one moment. Sorry, technology. It's not quite as easy as just handing out a piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to share the screen, Representative Martin. I have both a section about how to address the hearings as well as a possible suggestion for the species of special concern. I think I'll have to make it slightly bigger for you all to read. Okay. As Senator Dill mentioned, regarding the hearings, there is this option to strike the current language as written and just include at least one public hearing. So as you can see here. So that's one option. For the definition, we could go with something such as this. Species of special concern means a species of fish or wildlife that is not an endangered species or a threatened species, but meets criteria established by the commissioner by rule. There's also, I would need some more information, but we could include, rather than saying by the commissioner by rule, we could list more clearly what that criteria actually is. That would be another option, although I don't have direction for what that would be at this time.
Thank you, Rachel. Any more discussion on these options?
Yeah, I have a question for the commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Is fish not considered wildlife? Why is it pulled out specifically says fish or wildlife? Does wildlife refer to what? Mammals only, or?
Yeah, mammals, but you mean everything but fish. We have always separated the two. Yeah.
Okay.
And for a while. Yeah.
So does turtles and amphibians and insects
wildlife.
And all that stuff?
They're all included in the definition of wildlife. Yeah.
All right. So I can now say that my fish is tame out in the pond out back. So.
No, you may not.
Oh, okay. I'll bring my koi back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still illegal.
Representative Ordway.
Yes, as the sponsor of this bill, I would absolutely defer to the wording that the commissioner has asked for, or the department has asked for in the amendments. And I thought there was one other thing that the department may have wanted put in there, and I was agreeable to that also.
Thank you, Representative Ordway. I think that the language that Rachel presented was language that we worked with some stakeholders to come up with. And I'll ask Dr. Webb to join me here, but I believe that our preference is to keep the criteria in rule because the criteria may in fact change more regularly than statute would allow. So just a disease would be a good, if there was an emerging disease like we had with white nose syndrome, we would want the flexibility to bring that through rulemaking rather than have to wait for the legislature. But Nate, do you want to elaborate?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Nate Webb with the department. I'm the wildlife director. Yes, we have worked on a few different iterations of potential language to address some of the concerns that were raised in the hearing. And I think Rachel has presented some of those. Like the commissioner said, we have discussed going to rulemaking to more clearly lay out and establish the criteria in the department's rules for what a special concern species would be, and also to include the list of those species as well in rules. So I think we're still working on some of the details of the language. I'm not sure if Deputy Commissioner Peabody may want to join in and address that specifically. But we have been working with the Forest Products Council and Maine Audubon and others on some potential adjustments to the language.
Thank you. Mr. Peabody, do you have anything to add?
Everybody hear me?
Yes.
I still don't have a camera. I don't know why. The only issue we really have in front of us now is where it lies within Title 12. Whether one of the proposals was that under the definition section, we have rulemaking language, and that's really not the way we're structured right now in our definition section. So I think, working with Rachel, maybe what's the best place to put any proposed rulemaking, specific rulemaking language inside of Title 12 is really what's at debate here. We're pretty much in agreement with all the stakeholders that the substance here is what we want. We just need to structurally put it inside of Title 12.
Thank you, Representative Danny Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I sense from the comments from Nate and the Commissioner's office that, are you looking for more time to work on this here and come back to the committee with language, or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think that would be helpful if we had a bit more time to work on this, unless the commissioners disagree.
Commissioner?
No, I think a little more time would be good, particularly just to figure out where exactly we're going to put this, whether it's a subchapter or, or unallocated language. I don't think we've figured out the best place to put that yet.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to table.
Okay.
I would second that.
Second that.
Could we have a time? Do we need a time certain on that?
About the next meeting, next work session.
I would second that.
Thank you. Representative Hepler, did you have a question?
No, those were the nope.
Okay. Well, do we need a
tabling motion is not debatable, just
no. Just show of hands is what we did last time.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling? Opposed? So be it.
Looks to be unanimous to me.
Yes. Well, we will close the work session on LD 88. And thank you all for being here. Is there anything else before us, Linda?
Sorry, my space bar isn't working today. Not that I can see. I think that completes the agenda for today.
Okay, thank you. Representative Lyford?
Thank you, Representative Landry. Be sure the next time you see Representative Martin to get $5 from him. Thank you.
Representative Hepler?
Oh, wait, yeah. So the next work session, so does that mean LD 88 is coming up on Wednesday? Because that's what, oh, wait, no. Yeah, Wednesday?
Well, that, I don't have the schedule here.
Yes, that is correct. The next
Oh,
work
that is-
session we have
that is
scheduled
correct.
is, right.
Okay.
Representative Danny Martin?
No, just a comment, Mr. Chair. Chairman Landry, you did a great job this afternoon.
Thank you. I'll learn how to do this at some point.
And if I could just, to get verbal confirmation, you would like me to work with the department on that amendment language to bring back for Wednesday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Ordway? Can't hear you.
Crying out loud.
We heard that.
Okay. I would just wondering if 2 days is enough time for the department to come up with the wording they want.
Thank you, Representative. I think we have the language. It's just a placement that we're working on. So I think as long as you're comfortable with Rachel working with us, I think we can resolve this quickly.
Very well, thank you.
Very good. Seeing no more questions, you all have a great afternoon. Oh,
Did you
now
have a-
close.
Did you have a
close.
motion to adjourn? Yes.
Oh, geez. Nobody wanted to.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn. I move. we move.
Second.
All those in favor?